begin. You're in too deep to go back again. Cash is pay to play. You want more hits than lemonade. No, you don't own me. You don't even know me. This vagabond with a two-part path to the great beyond. Say genuine, a ground floor up, I can help you find. You're a dreamer, call me when you're Bieber. And when they play it, you can't help but sing along. That's nothing odd, that's nothing wrong. 'Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, the first time you felt live. No good song never dies. Like a lover who won't back down and pull you over to the side, look you straight into the eyes. No good song never. No good song never. The first time they made you cry, the first time you felt alive. No good song never.
Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, first time you felt alive. No good song never. Cause a good song never dies. Cause a good song never dies. It just reminds you of where you were the first time it made you cry, the first time you felt alive. No good song never. No good song never dies.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of epic and entertaining racing action in the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 17 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly powered by both Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography Design. That's right, we're back once again. Another week has flown us by and we remain in the United States of America. We've made our way all the way to the West Coast for the state of California and with it America's answer to the Monaco Grand Prix circuit. Indeed, we're here on the streets of downtown Long Beach for the Long Beach Grand Prix circuit and what a round we have in store for round number 5 of 12. A circuit opened as a means of bringing the spectacle of Monaco to the US of A, albeit with the added element of plenty of overtaking opportunities. This is a circuit that since its inception in the 1970s has been no stranger to motorsport, whether it be at a national and international level. On an annual basis, playing host to IndyCar but also IMSA, it is a circuit with its 11-corner 1.96 mile layout that offers opportunities for drivers and spectators to get as close as possible to the racing action. And with the racing being from wall to wall, from quarter to quarter, and making its way and winding its way, we should say, past notable landmarks, including, of course, the infamous fountain and the aquarium, it is a circuit like no other when it comes to the spectacle, but also the action it offers. And for our drivers today, it's going to be a round whereby over a single endurance race, they're going to need to make sure they keep out the wall, keep it consistent, but also be ready to give it their all if they want to come away victorious. But who exactly will do so? Well, that's what we're here to find out in this post-round broadcast from circuit side. Indeed, today you're tuning in to a post-round broadcast where you're catching up all the racing actions if it were live. The racing have occurred on Monday, the 18th of May 2026. We're bringing it to you as if it were live today, this Tuesday evening on the 19th of May. Therefore, it means we do not know what happens where it be in the background, as that's a brilliant power slide there by somebody. I do believe that might be Matthew Shepka going very sideways, but we do not know who comes out on top in practice, nor alternatively in the qualifying session, which is upcoming, or most importantly, our long race. And therefore, it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning at home, as it is us here in the commentary booth. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this post-round broadcast from circuit side as you tune in tonight, the only place you can catch all the racing action from this season, the Alpha Touring Challenge, and of course on YouTube at youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP. In the commentary booth, we have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be covering all your racing action as it unfolds. In terms of our schedule for today, in terms of Eastern Daylight Time, that's EDT, or Universal Coordinate Time -4, UTC -4. As we can see in approximately 12 minutes time, we're making our way into our qualifying session, 10 minutes in duration at 9:15, or drives out of the circuit in a lone qualifying instance, looking to go for pole position over their 2 flying laps, after which we'll then head to the grid for our one and only endurance race. 60 minutes of race in action, plenty of strategy on the cards, and therefore this should be a very exciting one to see who exactly is going to score big and who, meanwhile, is going to wallow in the footsteps of others. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as always, let's bring out to speed the story so far of the 4 rounds of racing and exactly what we've got in store for today. And as we can see, as we take a look back through our calendar, last time out on the 11th of May, we return to the US state of Alabama for the Barber Motorsports Park. It's been some time since we visited the Barber circuit, and having recently been refurbished and rescanned as part of iRacing's update in 2026 Season 2, we thought it was only appropriate we made our way back there. But what did we get to see in the second of our sprint race rounds? Over those 2 25-minute races, well, it was definitely 2 races of 2 very different stories. But before we got to the stories of the races, qualifying was definitely full of intrigue as well, whereby it was a very tight contest for pole position overall in qualifying, with Wojciech Swirydowicz, Michael Polosek and Matthew Meilleur all fighting hard for pole position. However, in the end, it was Swirydowicz who took that pole position by 600ths ahead of Polosek, and Meilleur was a further 600ths behind. It was razor tight and close between the trio. But there was also a very impressive 4th place overall and gamma pole position for Damon Mitchell, who was able to outpace his rivals, including Fleet Smith, who was the closest. And in Delta, we also got to see Kurt Smith take a class pole and 12th overall, the best part of almost 3 attempts ahead of his closest rival, Fyodor Ridgely. But then we went to race number 1. And there we got to see that for Wojciech Swirydowicz, it was all about withstanding the initial pressure put on him by both Polosek and Meilleur, and then he was able to gradually walk away with the win, taking that victory in the end by only a couple of seconds, as meanwhile Polosek had to wilt to the intense pressure from Meilleur. Elsewhere, down in the Gamma class, we got to see some fantastic battles, and in Delta as well, but there were also some drivers who lost out significantly during the race, including Matt Shepka in Gamma, and also Fyodor Ridgely in the Delta class, for a huge incident on lap number 5, and we also did see Lewis Gilbert on lap number 4 lose out massively in the Delta class. But whilst Swirydowicz took the win overall, it was also winners' honours in Gamma for Fleet Smith, who made another win after starting just behind Damon Mitchell, passed Mitchell on the open lap, and after that left Mitchell to fight with Dan McFarlane for the run-up spot in the Gamma class, and therefore it was 5th place overall and a winning Gamma by 3.1 seconds for Fleet Smith. And in the Delta class, Kurt Smith in the end converted pole into victory and had zero pressure from his Delta rivals, and given the fact he only lost 1 overall position, he finished in 13th, and when it meant he was in the only position that the Deltas would have to go into that top 15 inverted grid for race number 2. So it looked as though it was going to be back-to-back victories for Kurt Smith. However, race number 2 didn't let him have that at all, whereby Kurt Smith at the end did not get to go racing whatsoever, a non-start, and therefore it opened up the doorway in the Delta class in race number 2 for absolute madness to commence, and did it so. And Evan Clavier then made sense of all the madness and brought home the win, and it was his first class win of the season with 13th place overall. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class in the second race, well, it was a front row start for the Pennzoil Super Touring pair of Cooper Akers and Zachary Leopold, and in the end Akers was able to jump from second to first, with Leopold acting as rear gunner, and whilst they couldn't keep Wojciech Swirydowicz behind, who stormed away to take his second overall win of the day, even after a 10-second post-race time penalty was applied because of an incident between him and another driver, when in the end we got to see Wojciech Swirydowicz make it the back-to-back victories in the sprint race overall, and take the maximum 200 points in the races. But meanwhile in the Gamma class, it was Cooper Akers who brought home his second win of the season, and also his best ever overall finish finishing position in an AlphaTauri Challenge race, taking second place overall, beating his previous best, which was a sixth place overall several seasons ago. So that was the story of our winners and our headlines from Barber Motorsports Park, and here we are today then for Long Beach Street Circuit, as it is the 18th of May when the race is going on, and there's one 60-minute endurance race. After this round, of course, the street circuits continue because we make our way to the streets of Chicago, and that will be on the 25th of May for two 25-minute races there. But as we come into this round, well, let's give you an overview of our circuit for today. Of course, we are racing on the streets of downtown Long Beach in the US state of California, and it's Los Angeles County of the state. 1.96 miles in length or 3.16 kilometers, but regardless of your use of units, what stays the same is allowed to the circuit, and it's 11 corners at the core. And as always, a huge thank you to the AlphaTauri Challenge Administration for their brilliant cheat sheet, and let's give you the quick overview, starting with our circuit ratings. First up, tyre stress, 3 out of 5. Now, this circuit is quite moderate on tyre usage. We do have some heavy braking zones. We have some very aggressive corners as well, perhaps none more so than the turn 11 hairpin. We'll see our tyres put through the maximum paces, particularly the left front tyre, whereby that will have to be turned through while the tightest corners in the world. Indeed, our drivers will be on full steering lock going through there. But we also do have some quite stressful corners for the right-hand side tyres, including turns 6 and 7, and also the run, indeed, going through turn number 1. Now, as for heavy braking, we do have some heavy braking zones at the end of long straight, particularly the run all the way from the final corner down towards turn number 1, and also we do have the heavy braking zone at turn number 9. And there's also a mixture of slightly less heavy braking zones, particularly in the run from turns 3 through to 4, and also the run from turn 5 into 6. So there's a degree of heavy braking out there, but not too much of it. Overtake difficulty, meanwhile, 4 out of 5 here. Now, it's not impossible to overtake at Long Beach. However, you've got to pick the right places to do so, and that makes battling just as easy for the defender as it is for the aggressor, whereby you have the long run down towards turn number 1. That's one of our best overtake zones, you can see highlighted in blue on the circuit map, and the other one being in towards turn number 9 on the long back stretch. Those where we'll see the main overtaking opportunities be presented, but it is not impossible to go too wide through the likes of the fountain at turns 2 and 3, nor going through turns 6 and 7. However, you've got to be ready to go all in to make those moves happen, and especially at turn number 8. And get it wrong at turn 8, and we could see a roadblock created, given the fact that turn number 8 on the exit has an egregious tyre barrier that pokes out away from the concrete barrier. It's not quite as flush as it would be at other corners. So overtakes around here definitely are going to take some effort. However, that does mean, and it puts a bigger emphasis perhaps on track positioning qualifying. Now, as for the off-tracks difficulty, we give that a 1 out of 5 because of the fact there's not really any room to go off-track here. Now, we do have plentiful run-off areas. If you get it wrong on the braking into turn 1, you can go straight on, but you've got to weave your way between the tyre barriers or get the car turned around very quickly. The same at turn number 9, and also do believe the same at turn number 6. But otherwise, get it wrong, you'll find a barrier instead. But, of course, that leads to the risk of traffic jams. And as you can see on the circuit map, we've got plenty of yellow triangles in order to indicate past instance, particularly around turn 1 through to turn number 3, the run in towards the fountain. We've also had some previous instances at turns 4 and 5, also at turn number 8, 9, and of course at the hairpin at turn number 11. And as for the early traffic jams, we do expect a big traffic jam into turns 1, 2, and 3 as we make our way through the fountain for the first time in the race, but also we expect some traffic jams into turns 8 and the hairpin at turn number 11, and particularly on the open lap at the hairpin. If we see the field bunched up, when anybody who tries to go too wide through there on the opening lap, they've got to be prepared to give way, particularly on the outside, because otherwise we're going to see drivers going to the barriers very quickly. Now, in terms of pit entry, it's a very easy pit lane to go in. You just flick to the right hand side as you make your way out of the final corner and go onto the start finish straight. But the pit exit, meanwhile, very challenging because understandably you are coming out parallel to the racing line going into turn 1, but there is a pit exit line that you are not allowed to cross, and until you pass the exit cone, if you cross that line beforehand, you will be receiving a penalty, and that will be a drive-through penalty for an unsafe pit exit, as I stumble over my words. And as the drivers make their way through turn 1, they'll need to be very careful of that, because it's very easy to see a race come undone by just simply not getting it right when you do leave the pit lane. A huge thank you for the cheat sheet there from the ATC administration, and that brings us very nicely up to speed with the Long Beach Street Circuit. But with that, of course, let's give you a quick reminder of the rules, because we're not allowed to go racing without them. Car setup-wise, as always, this is an open setup series, with drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race day session. As this is an endurance race round, the race shall commence by a standing start, as is a tradition of the AlphaTauri Challenge series, and drivers must change at least one tyre during the race. Now, they must do it at some point when they do take their pit stops. So which do they go for a one-stop strategy? Do they go for a two-stop strategy? We will have to wait and and see. But typically with these 60-minute races, we do see 2 stops. But then again, given the fact that Long Beach is not that aggressive on fuel compared to other circuits, could we see some drivers entertain the 1 stop today? But regardless how many stops, they must at some point change a single tyre. Now, each driver has 1 fast spare available should they need to use it. If they pick up damage during the race, they can come into the pits and repair it, but they may be forced into the pit lane if they pick up too many instant points. Get to 15 or more, and you shall receive a drive-through penalty for your misdemeanors. Double that up to 30 instant points, and you shall be disqualified for the race. But hopefully we don't see that, and all race surely shall be conducted post-race. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, with haste, let's make our way back to circuit side and bring up speed of the championship standings then coming into this round. And we begin, of course, with the overall Drivers' Championship standings, or the Alpha Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, Wojciech Swirydowicz leading the way on 760 points. And the back-to-back wins last time out at Barber have really pushed his lead to the limit. And, well, what an advantage he has. With 184 points over Matthew Meilleur, the SRG driver, where he's moved back into second place ahead of Ray to You, who falls to third for Beaver and D's, but is only the best part there of what is almost 20 points behind. Logan McKenzie completes your top 4 for Pennzoil Super Touring. He definitely had a bit of a rough day in the office. You could say that was the case for many at Barber Motorsports Park. There's definitely a lot of elbows out racing in race 2, if not throughout the entirety of the day, but the battles were incredibly intense. Michael Polasek sits in 5th for Yellow Flag Motorsport, but do remember the Wojciech Swirydowicz has competed in every round so far, has Ray to You, whereas Meilleur, McKenzie and Polasek, well, they've all either had a dropped round already, but we're not considering drop scores just quite yet. Alternatively, they've had 1 round where it hasn't quite gone right. So therefore, it does mean that at least at this time, we are seeing Swirydowicz run away, but when the drop scores start to be applied, we will see those gaps tighten up a little bit. But Swirydowicz is setting the benchmark with the results he's had thus far. Chris McDonald sits in 6th, the leading Gamma overall, the Croc Promotions driver, who is leading in his championship class as well. When we see those standings shortly, but the gap is perhaps not as pronounced as the 30 points he seems to have over Matthew Shepka. The Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, or the senior driver, they're doing well, totaled at 7th place currently, ahead of Fleet Smith, who's only a point behind for B4Ds. And then we do see Franz Washington for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, and Beaver and D's John Lauzon completing your top 10. Cooper Akers, with a big set of results for the Pennzoil Super Touring driver. He moves up into 11th place, ahead of Mike D'Almeida. And then we do have Dan McFarlane, Damon Mitchell and John Daniels completing your top 15. And keep your eyes out for the trio there, McFarlane, Mitchell and Daniels. They're all looking very impressive at this point in the season. And particularly, we are seeing a very strong charge from Mitchell so far, after what was a very impressive set of performances last time out at the Barber Motorsports Park. Micah Hendricks sits in at 16th there for Croc Promotions on 317 points. He's definitely had a bit of a rough start to the season. Last time out at Barber Motorsports Park, he had to miss the first race due to a technical issue of the car, but they managed to get it back out there for race number 2, but he had to fight his way through the field and picked up some valuable points. He's only ahead of Ian Bertolucci based on result countback, and you do have your leading Delta driver, Azat Hidalgo, for T0 Race of Descent, head of his sister team driver and Major Monsavai. Zachary Leopold completes your top 20, and outside that top 20, 21st, it's Evan Clavio. He's 2 points ahead there for Sim Racing Grid, ahead of Tyler Long for T0 Race of Descent, and then we do have Gareth McAllister and his teammate Mitchell Richmeyer for Umata Motorsport. They're not too far behind. Corey Lobner, always looking impressive, the number 41 driver, the Privateer, he's in 25th, head of Zachary Bowman for Yellow Flag Motorsport. Then we do have Kurt Smith, third out originally, Jason Lynn and Carl Trost completing your top 30. Outside the top 30, Lewis Gilbert by only a single point before ahead of Christo Ondera, and the Junk in the Trunk Electronicas driver having a much better day at the office at Barber Motorsports Park. We're starting to see him build up some momentum in what has been a tough season so far, with Jacob Simmons there, the debutant for this season, in 33rd place ahead of Nicholas Schwetzker. And then we do see Austin Dunbar, Eli Sasak, Christian Ost, Spencer Clark, Aaron Lahr and Tyler Langenberg complete your top 40, and we'll tell you a little bit more about Tyler Langenberg very shortly, because he definitely had a very entertaining day for his debut round of the season at Barber Motorsports Park, and it was one to be remembered. Outside that top 40, we do have Mark Darnell for Gator Racing, at some points head up Alexander Gonzalez Green, and it's Benjamin Andrews, Thomas Fancock, and Jess Rakowski who complete those with overall points. And then on 0 points to date, JB DeJoux, Jonathan Lantin, Jalen Kuo, Jeremy Barber, Michael Bowman, Joshua Bibb, Angel Benel Soto, and Nathan Hempeley. Meanwhile, when we go to the Gamma class standings, so this is where we only look at the Gamma class drivers, and we take their overall finishing positions on the races and add some bonus points on top for what would be their class performances, particularly for fish on the podium. Remembering the fact in the endurance race round, it's 8 for first, 4 for second, and 2 for third. And we halve those points for the sprint races, so that way they add up to the same when you take the 2 races together. And Chris McDonald leads the way, but his advantage, well, in reality, it's actually only 12 points for the Crop Promotions driver ahead of B4D's Smith. And then we do see Shepka just a little bit further behind there for Sia of 459 points. And that's where the bonus points really become a big factor. How, at the moment at least, it seems that Chris McDonald cannot be removed from the very top of the standings. He's been holding on to it for some time now. However, Fleet Smith Smith is definitely one of the danger men today in the fact that he's building up a lot of momentum. But do not rule out Shepka. The senior driver still looking quick. However, he needs to find a few more bonus points and some big landmark results if he can. Cooper Akers, he's been propelled all that to fourth place after his heroics at Barber. And the Pennzoil Super Touring driver only 9 points ahead of John Lauzon. But the Beaver and D's driver, well, after a good start to the season, it's been a bit of a middling last couple of rounds. And can the Canadian get back on the right pace today ahead of his fellow countryman from Yellow Flag Motorsport and Mike Almeida? Then it's going to be a first 17 points to Dan McFarlane. And the Sim Racing Grid driver just ahead of Damon Mitchell as their rivalry continues. And we see behind the Crop Promotions driver in 8th place, where is a sizable gap there. And so tune of 45 points to John Daniels for T0 Racing Summit. Then Ian Bertolucci, the Brazilian, completes your top 10 for Sim Racing Grid ahead of T0 Racing Summit and Major Bonzai. And for the best of the rest driver, it's then only a single point to Pennzoil Super Touring Zachary Leopold, with Zachary Bowman behind the fellow Zachary. And then we do see Nicholas Shvedska and Alexander Gonzalez Green completing the Gamma standings. As the Deltas, well, here we can see it is the story of one driver right now, and it's a 1-2 for a team as well. But Zach Hodako is leading the way on 336 points, and he is an astonishing number of points there of 79 points ahead of Tyler Long. And well, Long's definitely not had this season quite go right so far, but Hodako, even when he's had a bit of bad luck, everybody else has had as much bad luck as him. And particularly last time at Barber Motorsports Park, nobody in the Delta class really landed the big points other than Evan Clavio. So Clavio has leapt up to third place for Sim Racing Grid ahead of the Yamaha Motorsport pair of Gareth McAllister and Mitchell Richmeyer. But right now, Hodako definitely enjoying what's been a very good start to the season, and he'll be hoping he can continue that today. And Corey Lobner outside the top 5 there by 6 points. He's in 6th. Head of B4D's Kurt Smith. And then we do have Ferdal Ritchie, Jason Lynn, and Carl Trost completing the top 10. And then only a further point behind it is Lewis Gilbert there for Gator Racing at 4 points ahead of Christopher Ondera. And then we do have Austin Dunbar, Eli Sasak, and Christian Oss completing your top 15. Then Spencer Clark in 16th ahead of Aaron Lahr with Tyler Langenberg, who definitely had a great debut. He was fighting towards the back of the Delta field, but to be fair, the fight he was putting on in that number 91 was absolutely superb to see. Although I do believe, unfortunately, we don't have him here today at Long Beach because we would have loved to have seen him continue that form. Well, hopefully we get to see him in some future rounds. He definitely had a lot of fun out there. And we'd have Mark Darnell and Benjamin Andrews completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, we do see their 21st, Thomas Fancock ahead of Jess Rakowski on 18 points. And then yet score any points this season, it is Jonathan Lantin and JB DeJoux, as well as Jalen Crow, Jerry Barber, Michael Bowman, Joshua Bibb, Angel Minnesota, and Nathan Hempley. And as for your Teams Championship standings, we start with the overall Teams Championship, and Beaver and D's, well, they are running away at the moment as everybody else is playing catch up, but they do have an advantage of almost 400 points over Crop Promotions, who have only conversely got a factor of 100 divided out of it, and they've only got a 4-point advantage to Pennzoil Super Touring, who have moved very happily up into third place and are hot on the heels of Crop Promotions, and it was the best day of their season so far for Pennzoil Super Touring last time out at Barber Motorsports Park. Yellow Flag Motorsport, they sit in full for 913 points, and they are the best part there of 18 points ahead of Sia, who round off the top 5, and they've got S-Shark G not too far behind. But to be fair, in the battle of two sister teams, S-Shark G versus Sim Racing Grid, it is the sister that's beating the brother at the moment, as Sim Racing Grid continue to give pursuit. B4D sit in 8th place, 653, 100 behind the top 7, but in turn, the best part there of 63 ahead of T0 Racing Summit, with their sister team of T0 Racing Ascent right behind them. Complete the top 10, and then there is the best part of a 122-point gap to Yamaha Motorsport in 11th place. Best of the rest, head of Gator Racing, Promchon Motorsport, and Junk of the Truck Electronicas. And yet score any points this season. Breakfast for dinner, Penguin Mafia, and Waifu no Lifo. As the Delta Teams Championship, where this is based on the Delta drivers in each of these teams, we can see T0 Racing Ascent completing and leading the way on 619 points ahead of Yamaha Motorsport, with Gator Racing there in 3rd place. And T0 Racing Ascent are gradually ascending away, it would seem. And then we do see Sim Racing Grid in 4th place there, just ahead of B4Ds, with Promchon Motorsport and S-Shark G not too far behind. There's a little bit of a gap to Junk of the Truck Electronicas in 8th place, but they're well clear of T0 Racing Summit by comparison, who complete your Delta Teams standings. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a rundown of the standings. We're up to speed with the story coming into this round today. So without further ado, you know what time it is. It's time for us to make our way to qualifying and see who exactly is going to a pole position for our 1-hour endurance race here at Long Beach. And so, as qualifying gets underway, 10 minutes, and they'll very quickly go away. Understandably, this is going to have a lot of pressure at this qualified session, because if you do well here, you're going to give yourself track position, get it wrong, however, and you've got a lot of work to do. And all our drivers will be very much aware of the risks versus the rewards of a street circuit. And indeed, street circuits really are the differentiator, as we did see at St. Petersburg, Detroit, and also at Miami. And Barber Motorsports Park was our first non-street circuit last time out. We were racing a more natural open road circuit, but back to street circuits for this round, and also Chicago in a week's time, where we do see the circuits open up once again. But what does it take to do a good qualifying lap here at Long Beach? Well, like any street circuit, you need to literally run from wall to wall. However, the one thing about this circuit is you need to really understand, much like the Detroit Grand Prix at Belle Isle that we open up the season on, you need to understand the small microscopic elevation changes and little bumps in the road that can unsettle the car, particularly on the likes of Turn 5, which we've just seen on Dara make his way out of, whereby there is a small rise as you make your way towards the apex curb. When you do hit that curb, the car will bounce around and it actually plunges downwards after you've gone past the curb, and therefore if you get it right, you'll find that you've balanced out the car, and suddenly the rear end wants to stay stable and the front end will bite. Get it wrong, however, you can find that rear end will very quickly want to come around. So all the car lifts up at the back and all the weight is pushed right onto the front axle. And it's not just about that as well. You've got to be mindful of the fact you've got to abuse these curves as much as possible. You really do need to ride them, but also you need to negotiate the understeer that can creep in, and particularly at this hairpin at turn number 11. This is the corner that makes or breaks a lap, the very last corner, because you've got to get the power down as soon as possible and get the job done. But as we do see Mark Darnell in the Crop Promotions Hyundai make his way on. In fact, not the Crop Promotions Hyundai, the Gator Racing. Goodness me, I'm getting my teams mixed up here. That's not a good sign. Well, as we do see the Gator Racing or GR car make its way on around. Well, the Hyundai Elantra N driver definitely trying to push forward, find himself right at the thick of the fighting, but he's always a fun driver to watch out there, and we look forward to see what he can do today, as Wojciech Swirydowicz, championship leader overall, makes his way onto his first flying lap of the day. We'll get an onboard lap with our drivers. They make their way around for their second flying lap, because of course we want to see them up to full pace and speed. Remember, of course, they will put a light amount of fuel in the car to get the lightest possible car, but they do need typically their outlap plus one flying lap to get the tyres up to temperature, and that's what makes these 2-lap closed qualifying sessions so tricky, because you only really have one lap. You have your banker lap, and setting a good banker lap can always be very useful. And don't get us wrong, in the fact some drivers actually are normally better at targeting 2 banker laps rather than going at 1 banker, 1 fast lap. Or you essentially go for about an 80% lap and you go for a 90% lap rather than, say, a 90 and 100. It just helps you feel a little bit more composed at the car. But typically, our alphas, the very best of drivers out there, including multiple-time champion Michael Polasek, well, the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver here will be going all or nothing most likely with regards to his qualifying approach as he heads down the back stretch. We can expect that from all of them as I head onwards, and it'll be interesting to see who exactly gets it right and who doesn't quite get it right, as unfortunately I do believe we have a technical issue for Micah Hendricks' Audi RS3 Gen 2 car, and he may be starting from the back of the grid today if he is able to make it out there, and if so, he's not having a happy season so far, I can tell you that. But meanwhile, as we do see Polasek heading towards the line, well, the first lap comes onto the board and it's on Dara there for 26.611, but immediately more times piling in from our drivers, and will Lauzon raise the bar to a 25.404. Swirydowicz is going to make his way down very shortly. What's it going to be from him? And the answer is going to be his Polasek. That's a 25.356. Swirydowicz a 25.413. So times are coming in there from our drivers, no doubt about it. But as Mark Darnell makes his way down, let's jump aboard with him for a flying lap of the circuit. Making his way down towards turn of 1, and as he does so, bringing the car over to the right hand side for the opening corner, looking for his mark at the 300-yard board, and as he comes all the way down the gearbox to second gear, now onto the throttle and in towards the fountain section. Here goes left, right, so tight, and then another left hand. That's turns 2 and 3 done just like that in first gear, and now over to the left hand side to open up turn number 4. Flat through here apart from the curb impact, and then in towards turn number 5. Uphill he goes, bounce it over the curb in second gear, and then as the car starts to shake around, you want to very quickly get the car settled down and get on the throttle, get the front end to go for traction. Now over to the right hand side for turn number 6. Braking there at the 200-yard board, coming all the way down to second gear, and as he makes way out, keep it nice and tight so you can get the throttle on nice and early, and now over the crest and over to the left hand side for turn number 8. Brake at the 200-yard board once again, coming all the way down to second gear, nice and tight to the wall, and now stamp the throttle and hope you've got the steering absolutely perfect so that way you don't hit the wall but you get as close as possible to it. And as he makes way down there, making sure to only insert a tissue paper between him and the car and the wall, and then make his way in towards turn number 9. Well, there you see braking about 300 yards from corner apex down to second gear, bring the car to the right side to open up turn number 10, keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight, and stamp on the brakes as he makes his way into the hairpin and down to first gear, then nice and tight exit, full steering lock, and now powering his way out from an apex speed of 29 miles an hour. That is a lap on the Long Beach Street Circuit, brought to you by Mark Darnell as he crosses the line. What's it going to be this time? It's a 26.418, was an impressive lap there in the Deltas, put him third in class, but is it going to stand the test of time? We will have to see. As Logan McKenzie goes on to his second and final flying lap on a 25.863. And looking quick so far as Logan McKenzie, but he's got a bit more work to do in the Pennzoil Super Touring number 4 as the camera shakes there. I think being a bit unsettled, our cameraman, by the speed of the Honda. And Makes his way on around. McKenzie right now leaving it to be one of the last to put a lap together, as Lewis Gilbert for Gator Racing still trying to find a bit more time. But we do have a grand total today of 29 drivers who've made the journey to Long Beach. Not too many drivers have made the journey today, but to be fair, just because we're lacking numbers does not mean we're lacking quality. And that happens every so often, of course, and that's why we do have 2 drop scores over the course of the season, because understandably here at the AlphaTauri Change, we respect the fact that everyone does have lives. They can't always be on the simulator every week, and therefore the 2 drop scores give them an opportunity to miss a couple of rounds, but still be well within reach of the championship. But as Fleet Smith heads across the line, it's not looking as though it's going to be gamma pole for him today, because John Lauzon has set the benchmark very high there at a 25.4, and Fleet Smith in the end only 100ths out, but to be fair, hundreds and thousands will be the difference here today, as Logan McKenzie heads towards the end of his final flying lap. He's currently in 12th place, but can he go even further? And will the multi-time champion here of the AlphaTauri Change, the most decorated champion, of course, as he roars the fan down, is he going to be able to move inside the top 10, or is he going to have to do some work from outside the top 10 today? And the answer is going to be, it's not an improvement for McKenzie. Well, I'm shocked, I'll tell you that, ladies and gents, because normally McKenzie's up there in the front 3 rows. He will be starting 12th at best today, as Lewis Gilbert in the end makes way across the line at 27.154 for him. We get slap on the board ahead of Jeremy Barber, but he does not improve any more than that. So therefore, he'll be starting towards the back of the field as he shows you what the runoff area at turn 1 looks like, and the fact he can go behind there, the tyre barriers. But that is qualified complete, and as Francois Schinck sits in the pit lane, waited to get going once again, well, he'll be very happy with his lap, or will he? And in fact, what we can tell you is that as he gets ready to turn that car back onto the start for the straight, well, in fact, he decides to park it up once again, so perhaps they're taking a look at something on the car. But either way, he will be taking it 6th for the starting order, as he continues to make his guess if he leaving the pit lane or not. And I think he might be practicing his starts right now in the pit lane, but practicing it up to the limiter, which you can do. And we should correct what we said earlier on in the fact that it was Francois Schinck who performed that absolute sideways moment in the background when we opened up this broadcast, not Matthew Shepka, as I do believe Shepka is not here today. So the Sia car of Francois Schinck is the only Sia machine here, and well, understandably it's going to be a little bit of a quieter day for the team, but to be fair, I'm sure Schinck will do his utmost there to speak volumes of how big his performance can be. But this qualifying session is done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen, and it does seem as though Wojciech Swirydowicz then taking that overall and alpha pole position, a 1 minute 25.197, 600ths quicker than Michael Polasek, but it is going to be those 2 once again on the front row, and then just behind on row number 2, it is going to be an all gamma second row. John Lauzon taking that pole position by only 100th ahead of Fleet Smith, and then we do see Matthew Meilleur and Francois Schinck on row 3. Row number 4 is going to be a gamma alpha row of Chris McDonald and Ray Tiu, and then you're going for an all gamma row number 5 to complete the top 10 of Monster White and Mitchell. Another good lap there from Damon Mitchell, and Tyler Long will take the Delta pole position today. Well, the 767 driver T0 Racer has said he's finally found that pole lap he's been trying to chase for some time this season. So Long, I think it's now starting to build up momentum. And Corey Lobner, meanwhile, will be starting second in the class, down in 15th place, but still a very good effort from him. And noted the fact it was only 1.5 tenths between himself and Long. And then we do see a couple of gamma drivers, the former Schwedska and Bowman, before you do get the rest of the Delta field really coming on through. And that will include Mark Darnell taking that 3rd place in Delta, one of his best qualified points of the season so far. Well done to Mark for that. Just ahead of Jason Lynn by 17 thousandths. And then we do have Ferdal Reggie and championship leader Zach Hidako, not as strong here at Long Beach, taking 6th place in the class. Now, do keep in mind the spread there is quite tight to the Deltas, and in fact, Mark Darnell through to Gareth McAllister, so 18th through 24th. That's 7 drivers separated by only almost 5 tenths of a second. Well, you do the mathematics there, that is excruciatingly tight, but also look at the very front of the field as well. Your top 10 separated by no more than 6 tenths of a second. There's no real outliers here in terms of qualified times when you look at the board as a whole. Now, Long Beach, of course, a street circuit, it is a short one at less than 2 miles, so you would expect the lap times to be close, but given how technically challenging this circuit is, you would expect there to be some variance. But that shows you all the drivers really do understand the circuit very well, but understandably, in such a situation, with being tenths and thousandths here, well, to be on pole has proven to be an even bigger challenge than we perhaps expected. But still, that challenge has been passed, qualifying is complete, and that's time to make our way to the grid for our one and only race here today at Long Beach. It is time for the round 5 endurance race. And so as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the 5th round of Season 17 of the AlphaTouring Challenge. It's powered by Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography Design, brought to you on iRacing. And as we can see, taking pole position, it's Wojciech Swirydowicz, the Alpha Championship leader, trying to run away for Beaver and D's as quickly as he can. However, will he be kept in check today by Michael Polisek, who'll be very eager for Yellow Flag Motorsport to make sure that it's not all going to go the way of Swirydowicz. However, the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver had to keep in mind he's got two very eager gammers behind him, in the form of Beaver and D's John Nalzon, the most eager of the Beavers. And, well, he'll be starting 3rd place, a gamma pole position. Well done to John for that. Good to see him right up there. And he'll be in the company of Beaver D's Fleet Smith. That'll be the Bumblebee machine there. And, well, I wonder if he'll have a bit of a sting in the tail. But he'll be starting 4th place, just ahead of Matthew Meilleur for SRG. And the CE machine of Francois Schenk enjoying a good qualifying performance once again, starting in 6th place there. Can he go on the attack straight away? Chris McDonald, Gamma Championship leader, starts 7th for Crop Promotions, ahead of Ray 2 for Beaver and D's. And then we do see Meilleur on Survive starting in 9th place there for T0 Racing Summit. And there's a little bit of work to be done from that 9th place position if he wants to take a Gamma podium, because he has got 3 of his rivals in front of him. David Mitchell, watch out for the Crop Promotions 27 driver. As always, looking very sharp this season when it comes to qualifying. It does seem as though these street circuits are really catering to some of his strengths. But outside that top 10, starting in 11th place, it's going to be your Delta pole sitter of Tyler Long for T0 Racing Ascent. We have Logan McKenzie for Pennzoil Super Touring joining on that row, and a struggle in qualifying for Logan McKenzie. Will the number 4 driver prove more prevalent in the race? Then we do have Mike D'Almeida for Yellow Flag Motorsport and Cooper Akers for Pennzoil Super Touring, making up an all-gamma 7th row, with Corey Lobner 15th there, the privateer, ahead of Nicholas Schwedska. The Schwedska racing driver having swapped his car. He's used up his one free car change for this season. He's gone from the Veloster to the Audi Gen 2 LMS RS3. We look forward to seeing what the Canadian can do with the German machinery. Zachary Bowman starts in 17th for Yellow Flag Motorsport, ahead of Mark Darnell for Gator Racing. And then we do have Jason Lynn for Gator Racing just behind their 19th for the grid, head of 3rd Our Reggie for S Yacht G. Outside the top 20, starting 21st place, it's going to be Zach Hidalgo for T0 Racing Descent, and he will be in the company of none other than Christopher Ondera. And I do believe his 2 sons are watching today, and well, a shout out to them, because I do believe they absolutely love tuning into these broadcasts and seeing how their dad gets on. We do see Carl Troser started 23rd for T0 Racing Descent, ahead of Gareth McAllister for Umata Motorsports, and it will be on row 13. Zachary Leopold for Pennzoil Super Touring. Well, Barber looks good for him. This doesn't look good at Long Beach, given where he's qualified. And Lewis Gilbert would join him there, having put together a very late qualifying lap. Then, starting a little bit further back, Jerry Barber for Umata Motorsport there. He was 2 seconds off of Lewis Gilbert, but to be fair, got a valid lap in. And, well, completed that 14th row alongside him will be Micah Hendricks for Crop Promotions, who is taking part in this qualifying session. Well, not taking part in this qualifying session, is taking part in this race. He has made his way to the grid after not making it into the qualifying session due to a technical issue with the 73, but they have got that fixed. And the same for John Daniels. The T0 Racing Summit couldn't take part in qualifying, but he has now got the car good to go. So 29 cars, they're all ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. We're itching to go, so let's get going, shall we? As we look down to the start-finish line, it's time for the lights. And it's lights down, away we go for round number 5 of the championship, as all those lights go out and the drivers roar the way down towards turn number 1. But as they do, Wojciech Swirydowicz getting a good start there, but look at Michael Polisek immediately going the offensive as they head down towards turn 1. Polisek on the left of your picture, Swirydowicz on the right of your picture. Who's going to be the bravest of the breakers here as they both come into the opening corner? And it's Polisek trying to look around the outside. He gets pinned up high to Swirydowicz, and in the end Polisek gets on through, and it's going to be Polisek into lead as they clear the fountain. But as they do, will be while the rest of the field comes in. Bold move there from Logan McKenzie. He's able to squeeze away past Mike D'Almeida and beat the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver. Oh, he's got a bit wrong further back. I do believe we had a bit of an incident for Lewis Gilbert and several other drivers. There's been a bit of a turn in the fountain section, but they've all survived it. Although Zachary Leopold points in the wrong direction, but he'll get that car turned around, thankfully. We'll get a replay of that as soon as we can, ladies and gentlemen. But meanwhile, as the field roars its way over the crest and down towards turn number 8. Well, Polisek took the lead of Swirydowicz, but now can he run away with it? But Swirydowicz's teammate there, John Lauzon, right behind, acting as rear guard, but also hold on to the Gamma lead currently, it would seem, ahead of Fleet Smith. But as they all make the way down the back stretch, we'll look a bit further back. Corey Lobner, he's a decent start. He's got 2 places overall, but he's holding on to 2nd place in the Delta class right now, with Jason Inzat, Mark Darnell and Fred Al originally all queued up behind him. But it looks so right now, at least the battles are not going to be immediate. And I think there might be a bit of a strategic approach here. I wonder if a few drivers here are really thinking about the one-stop strategy today. As they come down to the hairpin. Oh, that gets a bit close on the braking. And that was their Zachary Bowman tapping Nicholas Schwedzer on the rear, going on the braking in towards the infamous hairpin. And a tiny tap there when Schwedzer was loading all the way up to the front of the car. And understanding that car being turned around. But Zach Hidalgo is into the pit line. I don't think that's for a pit stop. I think that's a jump start penalty there for Hidalgo. So he makes his way down. But that will be a drive-through penalty for jumping the start of the race. And that is going to be painful. But meanwhile, oh, what on earth's happened there? Well, his further contact was that Schwedzer and Bowman. Well, I think right now there's a few hot tempers between these two. We're going to get a replay of that when we can. Well, that's not what we expected whatsoever. But as they head on down, I suspect there might be a little bit of bad blood between those two. But I'm sure they'll set it down later on. At least that's what the narrative would say. Oh, and that is Corey Lobner's CFR privateer machine. That's gone straight at turn one. We'll have to find out how that happened very shortly. But definitely a few big moments going on to lap number 2. But meanwhile, speaking of big moments here, this is for Al Ridgely trying to keep Micah Hendricks at bay. And Hendricks already up from 28th into 20th place. He has made a lot of progress already. He's got a lot more progress to make, however, if he wants to get inside that top 10. But he's going to ride the rear bump here of Al Ridgely. And remember, Hendricks made his way all the way from the back of the field into the top 10 in the second race at Barber. And that shows you how quick the Alfa driver is. Looks up the inside there, and he'll take that place off his fellow Audi driver just like that. And originally not fighting that as hard as perhaps he would with another Delta driver, understandably, given the fact that whilst they all fight for overall points that go into their championship campaigns respectively, whether you're Delta, Gamma or Alpha, well, at the same time, sometimes it's worth fighting a driver who's quicker than you, and sometimes it's not. If this was the final lap of the race, he would fight for it, but right now, when you're only always 1.5 laps into the race, there's very little point fighting with someone who is clearly quicker than you. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, well, meanwhile, Damon Mitchell and none other than Logan McKenzie together here. McKenzie trying to come on for a move as we ride aboard with the Pennzoil Super Touring Honda Civic Type R FK8 machine. Looking up the inside, he'll pull the trigger on the brakes here, and well, he's got the braking advantage of the Honda by default, and well, the Audi will be beaten into that braking zone. So move there for McKenzie up into 11th place. Mike Almeida just behind, and right now the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver, after being elbowed out of the foul till the open lap, would dare move from Logan McKenzie. Well, right now he's definitely wanted to try and play catch up to Damon Mitchell at least and take on the man in front. Let's wait and see where he's going to be able to do so. As hold up a second, we are looking back here to Mark Darnell. Now we have just seen a chop and change of positions there between Darnell and I believe Lynn, but I wonder if that's a discontinuity from a driver there, and therefore it's a fake overtake, if you will, or a false overtake, we should say, not to confuse it with anything else. But as they do make the way around, of course, we do get discontinuity where a driver seems to disappear from the circuit, reappears wherever they last were on circuit is where their track position will be for our time in town, and suddenly overtakes can happen, and then all the places do get restored. So we do apologise for the confusion there. But meanwhile, make no mistake about this, this is not confusion, this is battling, because that is going to be Fleet Smith trying to go around the outside into the fountain versus will be John Lauzon trying to go from outside to inside through turns 10 into 11. That wasn't going to work, but John Lauzon now respected the fact that he's got a bit of a poke at a pro from the B behind, and right now there's a bit of a buzz going on in the number 13 as Fleet Smith goes on the attack. We ride aboard the nose, but as we can see the number 13 driver coming on down here. Will he sprout wings, or will he be crawling like an insect up behind? Well, right now he's trying to crawl for a move, but if he can make some magic happen here, well, to be fair, take that Gamma lead and try and run away with it if you dare, Fleet. But as he comes up through the fountain section right now, you can see the difference there. The Honda a little bit smoother on the transition between these low-speed corners. The Audi, meanwhile, really getting ready to deploy the power, but understandably, with its very aggressive gearbox, the Gen 2 car has seen the gearbox neutered down a little bit compared to the Gen 1, but still, it does have a much tighter set of gear ratios in those lower gears, and therefore, you've got a lot of power with those front wheels, which you do need to offset. Remember, front engine, front wheel drive, the front wheels do all the work. They have all the power put to them, and they do all the turning of forces. The rear tyres, meanwhile, get to have a bit of a nap by comparison, and therefore you do not want to have too much steering input in when you try to get the power down in any of these cars, particularly the Audi, as otherwise you are going to understeer very quickly and you will shred the tyres. But meanwhile, change of position, that is Bowman up the inside of Shredsker, and well, these two have definitely seen some tyres together, as that's the car going slowly there, and I do believe that might be the car has Zach Hidalgo after coming to the pit lane earlier on. Well, Hidalgo things have gone very wrong, and well, understand he's now a lap down. So this is drama for the Delta Championship leader. But meanwhile, we look to Mark Darnell as he looks to go on the attack. Now, as he does so, make his way around through turn number 10 into 11. Oh, that's very sideways there for Hendricks, taking a lot of curb in his Audi coming through the left-hander, and will catch the car just in the nick of time. And I do wonder where he plays baseball. If he doesn't, he might want to consider becoming a fielder, because that was definitely a great catch. And if he can catch a car like that, he can definitely catch a fast-flying ball. But as they make the way out, Darnell, there was probably looking at it thinking to himself, what on earth is Hendricks trying to do through that corner? And the answer is he's trying to push to make a move on Jason Lynn, but pushing a bit too hard, it would seem. But the Gator Racing driver's got the popcorn seat view, and he's doing well in third place in Delta right now. Hasn't gained any places overall. He's lost one, in fact, to Hendricks, but he's not lost any place in Delta either. And he has got third Our Originally just behind him, you can see there. And right now, Originally staying close, but not being able to find a way in at the end right now. And he's got John Daniels for close company just behind. But good race going here, no doubt about it. And Jason under increasing pressure for Hendricks. Now Hendricks looking for a potential move here into turn 6. Is he going to go for it? No. He'll wait. He'll probably go for it instead through turn 8 down towards 9. But there we do see Jason Lynn disappearing and reappearing. That's what we were saying about earlier, the confusion of a potential overtake. And here's Hendricks up the inside. And the Gator Racing machine backs off. And now he's got Darnell behind him. Now, is Darnell going to go for a move here as they make the way down? Will the team swap the two drivers around? You would think they'll most likely do so, or in fact, no, they will not. Now, understandably, what they can do at this point, or Darnell can be a little bit selfish here. Now, of course, there's one thing as a racing driver, you all have a bit of an ego out there. You have to have a bit of an ego as a racing driver in the heat of the moment, perhaps, although there are nice guys on the grid, no doubt about it. And as we do see Jason Lynn going a little bit deep there, does get the car together. But why can he afford to be a bit selfish? Well, what he can do is glue himself to the back of his teammate and fuel and tyre save off the back of him. That could help him a bit later on, and he just simply stays with 2 to 3 temps along the straights, lifts off the throttle a little bit, unless this man behind can put some pressure on for SG. That's for Our Originally. Would love an opportunity there to take that third place. He'd love to take the second place. He'd love to take a Delta win, but if you can't take the win, a finishing run-up would be the best possible opportunity. He's got third and second in class right in front of him, so it's always a fault there as Corey Lobner comes into the pit lane. And Zach Hidaka, we should point out, has actually taken a full pit stop as part of coming into the pit lane. So, not quite sure what's happened to Hidaka, but he seems to have got his stop out of the way immediately. We have no penalties, and not at least stewarding penalties applying. But put that fault out of mind for now, because Cooper Akers going to go defensive versus Bowman. And the yellow flag motorsport driver goes to the switchback. A little bit of tap on the rear there of Akers' car, but the two Hondas battle the way over the crest. Here comes Bowman looking up the inside, goes to the swap. And, well, he's going to get that inside line there. Very decisive battle in there, but you can see coming across, that's Akers trying to squeeze him. Here comes Shredska as well. Shredska looks one way than the other. The Audi's got the power. But the problem is those two Hondas, they fell out immediately. And they're both saying, who invited you, Nicholas? And Nicholas says, well, nobody gave me the invite. I just thought I'd invite myself. And they both said, no Audi's welcome. It's a Honda party only. But I think Mike Hendricks says, hold up a second, guys. What's going on? Because we do see our Alpha driver here trying to come onto the back of your three Gammers. And we'll tap to the rear there of Shredska. But, of course, the concertina effect really pronounced going for the hairpin. But what a race that's going on between the quartet here. And this is all fighting for what will be at 14th place overall. And for the Gabba tries 7th place in class. Some valuable points there overall. No doubt about it as Hendricks heads on down the start finish straight. We're backing off the Audi there a little bit, but that's the natural ebb and flow of the hairpin. If you have a poor run through the hairpin, you lose out a lot at the start finish straight. And that's where you need to try and catch your rivals at the right time, at the right corners. And that's what also makes overtaking difficult. The concertina effect essentially dictates you get too close to the apex of some of these corners, you have to back off and you lose all your momentum in the run to the next one. Meanwhile, speaking of momentum here, Matthew Mayer's getting some great momentum. Francois Schink goes up the inside immediately. G, the Honda there. Well, I can tell you one thing, Mayer not afraid to fry it all in at turn 6. But now here comes Schink back up the inside into turn number 8. 2 wide they come down the hill. And Schink's not backing out here. And he says, see you later. And well, in the end, he gets that move done. And Mayer flashes headlights. He's not too happy about that. I think he feels as though he was made to get very close to that tyre barrier on the exit. But I think that is more a flash of the headlights and Morse code, which is I'm coming for you, rather than the Morse code, which is I'm telling the stewards on you. But as they come out of the corner right now, definitely these two fighting hard. It is building a queue behind as Mayer looks up the inside. And that's going to be Schink going a bit too deep there, but he'll get the inside into the hairpin. Too wide for the hairpin. This is a recipe for difficulty. And they both get caught to each other. Oh, goodness me. And everyone else did. Oh, no. And there's going to be the traffic jam as immediately Mayer toes to the pit lane. Schink in the end has to roll back and forth. He's going to toe to the pit lane as well. And it does cause a big traffic jam. And suddenly, look at the split in the field as we do see Mike Delmeda and Logan McKenzie fighting side by side. And as they come down towards turn 1, the yellow flag motorsport driver, Tim Eden, just outrunning for a brief moment. But Logan McKenzie, he's not giving up the fight right now. McKenzie wants this. He wants it so much as they make their way down to the braking zone. He's got damage on the front of the car, but he says, I don't care. He's going to take that Honda all the way. As meanwhile, that was a big biff to the barrier for Nicholas Shredska. He's hit the wall at the exit of turn 1. The car's broken at the front right. And for Shredska, his race is over. He'll toe to the pit lane. He's got a fast spare available, but that is going to take the best part of at least 1 to 2 minutes. Shredska's going to be back at the field at this point and going a lap down. Well, he shouldn't give up because you never know what can happen before the race is said and done. There's still places to be gained, but that's a mistake from Shredskar. And well, here comes Logan McKenzie back on the inside of Diomeda. Can he get it done this time? Up into 9th place. He can, but he forces Diomeda to go all the way to the wall. And here comes Zach Bowman. Meanwhile, the two Yellow Flag Motorsport try to queue it up on each other. They'll be fighting for 5th place in Gamma as well as 10th place overall, but they'll want that place for Logan McKenzie if they can take it back. But McKenzie, yeah, he's definitely able to get his red mist out there to take those places. And understanding when he was clipped by the instant that happened between Shink and Meilleur at the hairpin, well, then he's had to essentially get it all back together. But as these drivers make the way on around right now, definitely there is no quiet moment at the wonderful Long Beach Street Circuit, I can tell you that, and we have seen plenty of excitement so far. But speaking of excitement at the front of the field, the very tip of the spear, which Yellow Flag Motorsports' Michael Bolasek still leading as Logan McKenzie comes into pit lane for repair work. But I wouldn't be surprised, as Mike Hendricks does the same, I wouldn't be surprised if they are now using, particularly in McKenzie's case, the repair work as an opportunity to get a pit stop out the way. Now remember, in these typically two-stop endurance races, we do have a very wide double pit window for the two stops, whereby essentially one of your stints is going to be a sprint, one of them is going to be much longer, or you can make the stints equal approximately over the course of the 60 minutes, so 20 minutes a stint. You have a lot of flexibility built into this. This is not a series whereby we have the fuel tank restricted so severely that you have a defined pit window where you have to pit on every, say, 20 minutes race. Some series do that, some do not, because there's nothing wrong with doing that. But here at the AlphaTauri Chase, the fuel tanks we run provide a lot of flexibility in these cars, and therefore it really comes down to knowing when's the right time for you as a driver to pit, and whether do you go for the undercut or the overcut. And both can be just as powerful. In layman's terms, if you're stuck there thinking, what is an overcut, what is an undercut? I hear these terms all the time. Undercut means you pit earlier than your rivals. So you try to go under them in terms of beat them in pace. You go down the order and then gain time because you've got clear track in front of you. You think you could essentially be quicker by not fighting with your rivals. Overcut is the opposite way around. You go longer than everybody else, and the idea is that you essentially want to just hold onto track position. And speaking of taking track position, that is Christopher Ondera taking the move on Lewis Gilbert there for 5th place in Delta. Gilbert in the end going a little bit deep in towards turn 1, a bit of a mistake under braking. We want to make that mistake once again anytime soon. As we look back to Gareth McAllister, and right now your number 25 driver for Monaco Motorsport, definitely trying to make some progress, as that was Lewis Gilbert having to sheepishly cut off the throttle there and trying to say to everyone, I want to come into the pit lane. That wasn't easy for him, to be fair, and well, I think getting caught on that outside, and the fuel tank was running quite low. Now, as we do see, Carl Trost and Gareth McAllister coming down. Well, Carl Trost actually gained as a result of that. McAllister lost out quite a bit as a result of having to be a bit respectful to the car that's trying to come into the pit lane. So Trost gained the place there unconventionally, but still nothing illegal about that. Just unfortunate circumstances, you could say, for the Monaco Motorsport 25 of McAllister. But now he'll try to come back as quickly as he can. But as they do, Tyler Long, Delta leader. We haven't really talked about him since the start of the race, but he's been very comfortable running in 7th place at the moment. Remember, of course, he has been promoted a few places as a result of incidents and pit stops at other drivers, particularly gaining those 2 places. What happened to Meilleur and Shink only about 2 laps ago. And Long right now has got Ray Tew behind him. And for Tyler Long at this point, well, I think the T0 Racer Sensei will be saying to him, don't be afraid to give up some overall positions. You have got a comfortable advantage over Jason Lynn. Prioritise your strategy and prioritise, most importantly, getting this car home. Because so far this season, for Tyler Long, this has been a season which has been in complete contrast to his season 16. Now, many of you remember, of course, that he lost out in the Delta Championship in season 16, the 5-year anniversary season, to Chris McDonald. But it was a season of 2 halves. The first half of the season, Tyler Long looked absolutely unstoppable. The second half of the season, suddenly Chris McDonald came out of nowhere, and for Tyler Long, everything started to go wrong. This season so far, he has been massively overshadowed by his teammates at Hidako, but here today, with Hidako running the last of the runners out of the circuit at the moment, in 26th place, this is the chance for Tyler to really land a big score and announce himself back on the stage. He is second in the championship, but he's a long way away from his teammates at the moment. But even if he takes a 10th place here today, overall, it will still be a huge amount of points, plus the 8 bonus points for winning the Delta class, and also the pole position points as well, which is a bonus 4 points, if my memory serves me correctly. He would really re-establish himself up there before we start to consider drop scores. So for Tyler, that's what he's got to do. He's got to play the bigger picture game, which I think he definitely will. But last season, of course, definitely was one of those seasons whereby I think it probably left him scratching his head at the end of it. What exactly did go wrong? And the answer is the second half of the season needed a lot of scrutiny. Now, meanwhile, as we look for the Delta leader, further back to Trost and McAllister, still together, still pushing each other onwards as much as possible, and well, we could have a bit of an exciting battle between them a bit later. Mark Darnell and Jason Lynn, the two Gator Racing teammates, running second and third in Delta, 11th and 12th overall. Fred Richie's a bit too far behind to get involved at the moment. But meanwhile, speaking of getting involved, are we seeing a bit of a building battle between the leaders? Because Michael Poliset and Wojciech Swirydowicz, gap is now down to 3 to 4 tenths, where previously it was 6 tenths. We'll have to wait and find out. But as we wait and find out about that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've got a few months to take a look back at from the start of the race, as we do take a trip back in time, and particularly what happened at the fountain on the open lap. But just before we do that, that's Ray to you, who's gone straight on there at what is turn number 1, so he's going to lose a lot of place. He waits to recover the car. He's waiting for the field to come through, and he will have now a gap before what will be Christopher Ondera comes on through, so that's going to work out for Ray to you. He drops all the way down to 50. We'll get a replay of that as well, as we take a trip back in time. Now, this was right at the start of the race. This was Ondera being caught up in the madness of the fountain. But what exactly did go wrong? So we looked to our exterior camera angle. There was a big check-up there by the looks of things. And, oh, goodness me, what happened to Ondera? We slammed on the brakes. And, well, we saw what was the number 72 there of Leopold completely on the round. But what happened to him specifically? Let's try and find out. Can we get an alternative camera angle here going through the fountain? We can get a closer camera angle. So there's a big check-up there. It looked as though Zach Hidalgo was the one who got caught up in the check-up. And then there was subsequently the contact there between John Daniels and Leopold being turned around over the front of Daniels. But I think the biggest check-up was off of the back of Hidalgo's car, though don't quote me on that. But that's what we saw happen at the fountain. Now, on lap number 2, we had this for Corey Lobner. Now, this was Lobner making his way down towards turn at number 1. Oh, and there was the moment there between Shvedska and, what was it, Zachary Hidalgo, and we're not quite sure, but Lobner missed his braking zone on the inside line and went straight on. It's not the way he wanted it to go whatsoever. But we had this for Zachary Bowman, let me correct myself, not Hidalgo. I do apologise there for the confusion. And the Flag Motorsport driver went for the move. This was the fountain, went a bit late and tapped Shvedska on the back. So then, well, Shvedska decided to come back at him here down the start for this straight. But what exactly happened as they made their way down? Because it was an odd moment. So, drag race down the straight, and it was Bowman ahead at the time, but Shvedska getting closer and closer, went to the outside. You can see Bowman tried to cover him off a little bit, and as they made the way, there was a tap between the two of them, and that is what sent Bowman sideways. So I think both were having a bit of a chat afterwards, because I think that was definitely a bit of a risky moment from both of them, but I think they both gave each other as good as they could give those two separate incidents. I wonder if the stewards would just step in and say to them, look, we both know you're racing and it means a lot to you, but just calm it down a little bit. But I think they did calm down after that, to be fair to them. But that was their big moment. And then we did have this huge moment on lap number 7 between Meilleur and Schink. This was the two-wide battle that ended up in misery for both drivers. And it was Schink on the inside, Meilleur on the outside here. And, well, you can see Meilleur went into turning because his steering lock was very limited. And Schink got caught across the front of Meilleur's car. And, unfortunately, then the rest of the field came careening into the scene of the incident. This is what it looked like on board from Logan McKenzie's perspective. Now, he won't see anything at this point. He'll see a load of cars in front. He'll be wondering, OK, so what's going on? He comes out of the corner. Oh, there's Francois Schink. He hits him. That's what the front left damage on his car was from. And then it calls the cue for the rest of the cars. This is what it looked like on board from Damon Mitchell's perspective as he came his way on through. And he, at the time, was also chasing after Logan McKenzie. And the Croc Promotions driver here, he's going to suddenly see a face full of a traffic jam. And, well, he gets the brakes on, but he is hit on the rear. But he does get the brakes on in time. But understandably, everyone's queuing up behind. We did have this meanwhile for Cooper Akers on lap number 8. And this was the Petzl Super Touring drive, having things go wrong. He was battling there with Shvedska, and when Shvedska cut to the inside, went for the move. Under braking they went, and in the end, Akers went straight to... Oh, and Shvedska went into the barrier. Was there contact between them? This was Shvedska's on-board camera. I'm not 100% certain, but I can tell you there was the contact between the two of them, most definitely so. Can we get an earlier look at that? And this was Shvedska's on-board. So coming down, looking to the inside, onto the brakes. No, there was not contact. So both in the end went to tight lines and both got it wrong. But Shvedska came off the bigger price of the both, which was the hit to the barrier. And that's what happened. So very unfortunate there for Shvedska, no doubt about it. And we just had this for Ratey on lap 12. This was Tew making his way down towards turn number 1. And as he did so, running at the time in a very happy 8th place, went onto the brakes, and as he did so, carried too much speed and immediately pulled the car to the right, realised the fact if he tried to turn it any more left, he would be making haste to the tyre barrier. And that explains all the big stories of the opening 12 laps, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way back to your live racing. goodness me, we've had some big moments so far, and I suspect we have plenty more before this race is one and done. But as we do come back to live racing, look into the front of the field, Michael Polasek and Wojciech Swirydowicz. Gap continues to come down. No pit stops from these two so far, and therefore just keeping their heads down. As we are hearing that Hendricks, unfortunately, has had to tow to the pit lane literally as we come back, so we might have to get a replay of that in due time. But for Monica Hendricks, things are going from good to bad to gruesome, it would seem. As meanwhile, the battle between these two leaders, well, that was a little bit of an error there through 10 into 11 from Polasek. The car just sweeping away on the rear axle from him. And remember, of course, these touring cars, these TCR machines, all built to an equivalency formula. Where's the 4-cylinder 2-litre engine, and all part of the World TCR regulations, whereby it's got to be front engine, front wheel drive. It's got to be within a certain weight category as well. But the key point being, these cars, they're all about the front end. And when you go onto the brakes heavily for a corner, you have all that weight pitched forward, and you essentially dance the car through the corner. You get the tripoding effect at some bends, where essentially while the rear tyres, the inner rear tyre to the corner apex will actually lift off the ground. That's been all part of the latest physics revisions and tyre model revisions of the TCR cars. We really do have now a very accurate TCR car here on iRacing. And, well, whilst we may only have 4 of these cars, in fact 5 you consider the Gen 1 Audi, which is still being BOP'd even though it is a legacy car now, and you can race the Gen 1 Audi as part of TCR racing on iRacing still, at least in the league format you can, competitively. But I'll tell you one thing right now, these cars are some of the finest out there when it comes to how well they've been modelled. But, putting that aside, we're going to see a swap of positions. That's Leopold getting ahead of Gareth McAllister. Well, McAllister does not fight that too hard versus his fellow Honda Civic driver. Lets it go, and I think decides to play the bigger picture game, which is I'm fighting with Deltas. I don't need to worry about the Gamma, who can perhaps be a bit of a nuisance to Trost and Ondra in front. Or Ondera, I should say, in front. Let's get his name right. But meanwhile, as all of our drivers carry on, so we're in a great race so far, and I suspect we've got plenty more action to come. And speaking of action here, well, how about this? It's Lynn, Darnell, and our Ridgely together, and Ridgely has caught up. As we ride on board here, the full-place Delta driver, and, well, he's been playing this kind of calm as the S-Shark G driver. He has slowly caught up to Lynn and Darnell, the two Gator Racing drivers, but he was, when he started this crusade, about 2 seconds behind, and he's very slowly, over the last 15 minutes, caught up by around half a tenth a lap. He's not really been pushing too hard. I think our Ridgely here has been playing the bigger picture game, which is, if I just save the fuel and stick behind him, I can also protect the tyres. Now, the thing about the one mandatory tyre change rule here in these endurance races is, you change a tyre and each tyre is changed individually alongside the fuel going into the car. So what that means is, the more tyres you have changed, understand the longer the pit stop you're going to have. Now, some drivers will only change one tyre. Some, meanwhile, will change multiple. You do see sometimes the drivers change both front tyres because the front tyres do all the hard work. Some only change one of the fronts. It'll be the most worn front tyre. So in this instance, as we are driving a clockwise circuit, it will typically be the front left tyre. It's the outermost tyre for most of the corners, which takes the biggest brunt of the wear. So it's always a fault there. But if you can save some time in the pit lane by just simply only taking one tyre, change instead of multiple, maybe coming off a bit quicker. At least you'll take track position. And remember, it's a street circuit here. Overtaking is not easy, even though this does offer more overtaking opportunities than most street circuits. So therefore, holding on to that position could be very valuable. But we do leave the trio behind, as we have had into the pits on Dara. He makes one down. And also, another thing to consider, this Long Beach pit lane is one of the longest on our calendar in terms of the amount of time you spend on that pit limiter, as Ondera demonstrates. And well, end to end, you are looking at a pit stop time of somewhere in the region, typically of a minute, if you get it absolutely right. So that is going to be a bit of pain, as Ondera now heads out of the pits, and he drops all the way down to 8th place in Delta, 22nd overall when he was battling for what was an opportunity to be inside the top 5. And then again, depending on how the pit stops play it, he may get that opportunity again a bit later on. As Carl Trost, meanwhile, has some company. But as Jason Lynn, as I look at my content booth window, comes in from 2nd in Delta and what was at the time 10th place overall. So he releases Darnell now Ridgely. Meanwhile, Trost here pulls his way to the pit lane as he had Leopold and McAllister right behind him. And well, this is definitely becoming one of those situations now where these fuel tanks are getting critical. But 25 minutes in, well, if we assume they are running full fuel tanks at the moment, which they're not mandated to do so, that's another thing you can do in races such as this. If you want to go for a shorter opening stint, why would you put all the fuel in the car? Because understandably, you can put less fuel in, have a much lighter car and go aggressive at the start, but then you have to spend more time putting the fuel back in the car at the end. There's all those faults, but it does look as though, unless you can do a lot of fuel saving here, you are going to be on the two-stop strategy. And there's John Daniels bound in here with Cooper Akers, looking for the move up the inside, trying to take that second place in Gamma, 12th overall. 2 wide they enter, 2 wide they exit, and behind that is going to be a lap down car as that Hidako, who can only watch on here with the blue flags. And well, it's going to be Akers defending very valiantly there on the inside, and Daniels will not be able to get that move done. He has to back off, but it is pit stop C's at the front, as there we see Polosek and Swirydowicz both into the pits. Behind, that's Lauzon and Fleet Smith. Major Mod Survivors also come in, as is Chris McDonald, Tyler Long, Mike Diomede, and Zachary Bowman. They're all coming in, so they've all pushed the fuel tanks as far as they can, but they have gone 26 minutes at the start of this race, and well, I think we're going to see Darnell now originally coming as well. So now it's going to go a bit quiet, this circuit, for a brief moment, and we'll have to wait and see who's going to come out on top of it all. Well, Fleet Smith, he leaves the pit lane first. So Smith decides to go for the short stop. He's going to go for the reverse strategy here, which is a very short middle stint, and he's going to have a longer final stint. That's quite the plan there. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out from us. John Daniels carries on. Daniels has yet to pit. He's gone another lap. Is Daniels here going for the one stop? I think he might be for the T0 Racing team. This is an impressive drive from Daniels. If so, that could really benefit him in the long run. If he can get 2 more laps in, including the one he's got onto, he will be certain for the one stop strategy. He's racing off pace, but Daniels right now, this could really be a bit of a magical strategy for him. We're going to need to keep an eye on him. But Polosek has got back out ahead of Swirydowicz, so no change for the overall lead, we believe, at the moment, on strategy at least. But just keep in mind, John Daniels at the moment, we don't know where he's going to fit into. We don't think he's going to take on the top 2 Alpha drivers, but he could yet pose a threat to the top 5 in Gamma and that top 10 as a whole. But in terms of other changes, Zachary Leopold ahead of John Lauzon. Leopold has yet to pit as well, as we understand it. Well, at least it hasn't come up as our recording, so perhaps he's trying to go 1 extra lap alongside Daniels. Let's see what the 72 driver can do. Understandably, John Lauzon has now lost out versus Fleet Smith, but we know that Lauzon has had the longer first stop, so Smith is going the reverse strategy to Lauzon. And a bit further back, Chris McDonald has got Damon Mitchell behind him. The battle of the 2 Audi drivers here, and Tyler Long is just there. So Tyler Long is still Delta class leader. That has not changed his status there. Meanwhile, what has changed is that Mark Darnell has moved up into 2nd in Delta ahead of 3rd Al Ridgey, and Jason Lynn actually had the longest stop of the trio. So we thought that Darnell might have been cheekily doing a lot of fuel saving, as our cameraman struggles to try and find Jason Lynn for a brief moment. But there he is coming over the hill. But there's your confirmation. Jason Lynn has gone from 2nd to 4th in Delta as a result of strategy. This has not worked out, and he's got the added threat of Corey Lobner behind, as Zach Leopold is into the pit lane. So he has not been able to do the 2 laps that we thought he might be able to try to do. John Daniels, meanwhile, has gone all in here for the one-stop strategy. He is going to go a 20th lap on that starting fuel tank. He's got a queue behind him. That's Fleet Smith in particular. And you've also got the lap-down car there all over his backside, I believe. Oh, no, that's the Audi of Fleet Smith. My apologies. It's the Honda that stepped out the way. It was that Hidako that's a lap down. But meanwhile, Fleet Smith carried on. But from here, we carry on down the field. Battle side by side between Ondera and McAllister. And McAllister right now into the defend, inside to outside. Oh, no, that's not the way you want to do it at all. And Ondera then just getting a bit raw and a break, and unfortunately understeered into the path of McAllister. Now that's a bit of a racing incident between both drivers, because both there making a bit of a mistake of their own. Oh, and that's not good at all for Ondera, hitting the barrier as well. That's how tight the steering lock is and how poor the steering angle is of the TCR. The Audi RS3 give you a great demonstration there, but what essentially happened, we'll get a replay of that very shortly, was that McAllister went to do the switchback there as Ondera went up the inside, but Ondera, as I stumble over a surname, unfortunately what he did, he just broke a little bit too late in the corner, carried too much speed and understeered straight on when he needed to be on a much tighter line there in order to continue the 2 wide. And that's how McAllister got caught on him, but I think no malice meant between either driver, as meanwhile John Daniels goes a 21st lap, so he needs 3 laps more than everybody else, not 2. And well, he's proven us here that he can go the distance for that fuel saving right now. Well, I'll tell you one thing, this is an incredibly disciplined drive from John Daniels to do this much fuel saving. That is not easy. He has had to work this out, and I suspect him and the team at T0 Racing, they have probably spent the last few days literally working out down to the gear shift and also how much lift and coast is needed at every corner. But Daniels right now, he drops the second behind Fleet Smith, so he does lose track positional advantage to those doing the 2 stop, but understandably right now he's looking at a much bigger picture. And Fleet Smith's probably looked at this and thought to himself, how on earth has John Daniels got there? And at some point, the penny will drop and they'll realise that he is doing a 1 stop. And if so, that is going to be a big question mark of what does that actually mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if most teams have not considered the one-stop strategy. They probably thought, is it possible? Then realised how much fuel you need to save. Then thought, well, surely that can't work out. That can't be as quick as a two-stop. But then again, John may know something that we do not, ladies and gentlemen. If so, well, Mr. Daniels here is definitely going to try and prove a point to everyone as Polisic and Swirydowicz close up. And I suspect Daniels immediately is going to come out onto the right-hand side down the exit of the corner. He does. And he says to the world, I am on a one-stop. I go into the pit lane now. So well done to John for that. That is a very impressive opening stint. If he can do it again successfully, so stint number 2, they'll put the fuel tank, they'll put the full fuel tank into that car. I suspect here we're going to see Daniels quite a way up there, depending on how those final pit stops go. But remember, he is battling against the length of the pit lane when it comes to that second stop for the rest of the field. But as all the pit stops now are confirmed and locked in, and Ray Tew there sits behind Tai Long. We know he has been into the pits already, although we don't quite have it on our graphics here in the commentary tower in order to tell us that he has had that pit stop. We promise you that Tew has been in after what was a bit of an altercation earlier on. Well, right now, the field settles down for a brief moment. The action definitely does not, and in terms of things not settling down, well, we're not going to settle down for anything less than some replay action as we take a look back at some of the big moments over the last few laps, including on lap 14, what happened to Micah Hendricks. So this was Hendricks making his way down towards turn number 6, and as he did so, what went wrong here? Well, went into the braking zone. Car was looking slow already. Was something broken on the car and just parks up there and toes the pit lane. I think he's had a knock to a barrier somewhere, and we don't know where. We haven't got the footage for that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately for Hendricks, that race coming to an abrupt halt. But meanwhile, as he towed to the pit lane, we had this for Ondera and McAllister, and this was into the hairpin. So breaking this down a little bit more, what you'll see is Ondera on the outside, going onto the brakes, the inside of the corner. Now, on the brakes, he just goes a little bit too deep into the corner. At that point, McAllister is driving blind. Now, even if he has triples, we'll give you the onboard from McAllister to give you an idea of what he sees. Even if he's got triples here, he will know that Ondera is to the right of him, but he is reliant on Ondera making the apex, and Ondera doesn't quite, so McAllister has to turn in. Obviously, he won't make the corner. He will hit a barrier, and unfortunately, they come together. There's no malice meant between both drivers. Could a finger be pointed at Ondera? Technically so, because he is technically the trigger of the incident by going deep into the corner, but I suspect that one, the shoulds may even look at it and go, well, in reality, they were both fighting, and in the end, neither driver meant malice at each other and perhaps looked past it, and even both drivers may say, we're not going to bother reporting that one, but McAllister gains from it, whereas meanwhile, Ondera does not, but both drivers survived it, and that's the most important part as we head back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. But as we do coming back, well, 27 minutes left to go, and still a lot of question marks about who could potentially come out inside that top 10 overall and who could win this race. Now, remember, Fleet Smith right now, he had the short first stop. Your Gamma leader and overall leader at the moment. He is going all in for this. And, well, if he can make this work out, I think he'll be a very happy man to take what would be the Gamma win. But also, could he potentially bring on home what could be an overall win? And keep in mind, he's only ever had one overall win in this series, and that was back in Season 14, Round 9 at Laguna Seca. But so far, at least, he's had one Gamma win, and it was, of course, in Miami, back in round number 4. And right now, what could he do here today? Well, as he heads onwards, we will see. But in fact, not it was Miami, it was at Barber Motorsports Park there. Let's get that right. And did I get my circuits mixed up there? But right now, Fleet Smith doing everything right it would seem. But behind there, Michael Polisic and Wojciech Swirydowicz, the two most decorated drivers in the AlphaTauri Challenge Series' history with regards to wins overall, with Polisic holding the record. And to give you an idea of the difference between the two of them, it is very close between them. And the answer to the question is, well, for Wojciech Swirydowicz, he has had 53 overall wins. His last one coming in Season 16, Round 4 at the Circuit of the Americas. Meanwhile, for what is Michael Polisic by comparison, his win record is just that little bit higher, and he has an absolutely incredible statistical record. And, well, he has had 57 wins by comparison. But can he go for number 58 today? His last one coming, of course, at St. Petersburg Grand Prix circuit back in round number 2 of this season. Well, at least at the moment, he's trying to poke and pro versus Fleet Smith, but again, caught up behind him. The reverse, however, is that he can take some confidence here. He's going to get a good run out the hairpin. If Smith's got ahead, he's got a longer pit stop to come, so therefore he can fuel save behind him a little bit. But I think for Polisic, he'd like to get clear of the B4D's Audi as quickly as he can. And you can see as they drag race their way past us and down towards turn 1, the problem is that Fleet Smith's Audi with less fuel in it is a much lighter car. So therefore, that Honda may have got the better corner exit, but it's taken the entirety of the straight to beat it to a braking zone. Fleet Smith drops to second end, and Swirydowicz now, will he try and make a move into the fountain? The answer is no, but this is the problem. Swirydowicz needs to get this move done now, because otherwise, that Audi, the little bumblebee machine, is keeping him away from the man he needs to stay with, which is Polasek, because he's been with him literally since the start of the race, but returns 4 and 5. That's not an overtaking position. They look up towards turn number 6 here, and Smith pulls to the left-hand side. Is he going defensive? He is. And under braking, will Swirydowicz go to look around the outside. He goes all in. And in the end, the Beaver and D's driver being given an opportunity there. And Smith decided to go 50-50 on the defense, not go all in on it, but at the same time, not making it perfectly easy. So it will be Polasek back into the lead overall. Swirydowicz a second behind, but now he's definitely going to hustle if he wants to stay with the leader. I'm trying to see what the game plan's going to be, but as they roar the way down towards turn number 9, well, right now, definitely this racing round back and forth between the leaders. But from them, well, a bit further back, we've got some change of foot, and in particular, Logan McKenzie has just left the pit lane, and he comes back out in 19th place as the Pennzoil Super Touring driver, so he has taken his second pit stop, and we believe that will be his last stop of the day. So a very short middle stint, and Fleet Smith does the same. So we expected the stint to be short, but we didn't know how short it would be, and there we get the confirmation. So John Lauzon retakes the Gamma lead for now. However, remember, it's all going to come down to who exactly is going to have the right strategy. Fleet Smith has gone standard, short, long. Meanwhile, Lauzon is going standard, long, short by the looks of things. He almost grazed the wall there coming out of the opening corner. That's how close he got to be, but right now he's going to push himself to the utmost in order to see whether he can bring home the Gamma victory. Mark Darnell, well, he's got Fred Alricci still behind him. Oh my goodness, that's very close there as we cut back to the rear tail camera of the Gator Racing 83. But Darnell right now will keep his head down as much as humanly possible. He's doing a brilliant job to keep Alricci behind. And we're in the battle of the Hyundai Elantra versus the Audi. We can definitely see this Elantra right now is proving to be a very capable car versus the Audi. But understandably, Alricci, he really does enjoy that Gen 2 Audi. He's got a lot of pace in it as they head in towards turn 1. But Darnell right now trying to keep that upper hand. And in terms of results between these drivers, well, they've both had some great successes this season. They've also had some middling moments, but understandably, we're excited to see which one of the two comes out on top. And for Mark Darnell, in terms of his best result that he's ever had, well, it would be 2 class wins in Delta. His last one going all the way back in Season 10. As he gets a bit of a poor run there, coming out to turn number 5. Here comes Alricci looking up the inside. And for Alricci, that's going to be all in straight away. He's not going to pull any punch on that, but Darnell goes to the switchback here as they head over the crest and down towards turn number 8. Will he be able to get the return move? Not quite. The counter-attack doesn't work out. So in the end, it will be for Alricci taking that place off him, at least for now. Jason Lim, meanwhile, battling with Cooper Akers, and well, still keeping Akers at bay, at least for the time being, although the fight building up between these two, as David Mitchell's a look at my content move window is into pit lane, but we stay transfixed this fight, as here's Akers up the inside, the Pennzoil Super Touring Honda, and number 29 driver goes up the inside there, and Jason does not fight it too hard, and Akers moves up into 12th place overall. Now, sadly, along the way, we have lost a few drives from this race, including Corey Lobner, also Micah Hendricks, also Matthew Meilleur and Francois Schenk. Of course, Meilleur and Schenk being caught up in that huge instance at the hairpin early on the race. Hendricks we've lost due to an unknown issue. We believe damage to the car because he did park it up at turn number 6. And Corey Lobner, we haven't quite seen what's happened to him, unfortunately. But otherwise, we do still have 25 of our 29 starters running, which is great to see here on the streets of Long Beach. Looking back there to Zachary Leopold as he battles side by side with John Daniels. Looking up the inside, Daniels on the left, Leopold on the right, but it does seem as though Daniels is going to be the quicker of the two into that braking zone, but having to go defensive along the way to do so. And Leopold here getting a bit close. They come out the fountain. Well, he thinks about moving to turn 4 there, then backs out of it. I think there's a little voice in his head saying, go do it next time, Zach. And, well, he definitely could have gone for it to turn 4 there if he wanted to complicate John Daniels' race. But remember, Daniels is on the one-stop strategy. Now, Leopold may not know that Daniels is on the one-stop. There's a bit of a problem, however, for Daniels right now. As much as he fights, remembering the fact he's got to make sure the fuel tank gets there on the one-stop strategy. If he does make this work, however, Leopold right now is losing a huge amount of time to Daniels' car. Daniels is 8th in Gamma, but given that Fleet Smith has taken his second pit stop, so he's out the equation, But given that Cooper Acres is only 9 seconds up the road, Bowman's about another 20 seconds or so up the road, so 26 in total. Daniels could be looking at a top 5 here in Gamma. We'll have to see what's going to happen. But Leopold right now, if he doesn't know he's behind a one-stopper, he's going to know soon with the way Daniels is driving. And we're coming up through that hairpin. Right now, he is losing time hand over fist as they head down the start-finish straight once more, past the palm trees along the waterfront, and Zach Hidako just in front there, trying to break away before a lap gets put onto him. Coming down towards what will be out their 20th tour of the circuit. Still more to come between these drivers, no doubt about it, as meanwhile, that is Logan McKenzie making a move there on Carl Trost. Trost stepping aside there, not really fighting with the Pennzoil Super Touring driver, but again, I think respect to the fact that when you do have a multi-time overall and Alpha champion in your path, don't want to get in the way of them at all. Instead, what you want to do is just let them go and follow them through wherever possible, because they can help you move up the order. The same for ATU as he gets close to Damon Mitchell. But Damon Mitchell has taken his second pit stop, so he's clear on strategy now. For ATU is not, however, he has made, well, in fact, he has made 2 pit stops, so let's correct ourselves there. And right now, he's going to be battling with Mitchell shortly to try and make his way on past. And here we ride on board with your number 96 driver as he comes out of the corner. Looking for an opportunity to get involved, perhaps, but not yet. It would seem it's a bit too far back as that Audi just careens away. And again, you can see the acceleration abilities of that Audi really unrivaled in some extent, at least to the Honda. The Honda, the cornering car, but has not got the speed by comparison. But of course, that's what balanced performance does. It makes some of these cars stronger in some aspects, but weaker in others. And the Honda, as always, a bit of a handling car, whereas the Audi, a bit of a power car, but also one that has increasingly found itself a bit more nimble over the corners, albeit perhaps the bumps to unsettling the car more compared to most. But we still have got just over a quarter of this race remaining, and it's definitely been a very entertaining race so far. Plenty of battle in action, and I suspect we might see a bit more before this is all over as they're catching up to Shvedska. Albeit, unfortunately for Shvedska, he is going to be seeing blue flags. He will be required to go down a lap shortly. We'll pull over to the right-hand side there and gradually let these two make the one past. Good awareness there for Nicholas, no doubt about it, and understanding a very frustrating race. Again, the way that things did go down earlier on, but he's not letting that frustration get the better hand of him. But then again, when we are racing touring cars, of course, frustration can be a big part, but that's what is the draw of touring car racing, of course, is those emotional moments. And indeed, many of us can look back to all the big moments of perhaps the golden era of touring car, at least in the United Kingdom, although I can't speak necessarily for the US of A, but the British Touring Car Championship, internationally renowned in the 90s through to the early noughties. And we do have the infamous moments such as I'm Going for First, there's John Cleland, but also some of the other crazy moments we've seen over the years. I think anybody will know those moments from whether you're based in the US of A, the United Kingdom, or further abroad, indeed at the very heat of motorsport. Touring car, definitely one of those motorsport disciplines whereby, yes, it's on the road, but I can tell you one thing, it's all in the mind as well between these drivers as they come roaring on around. But as Fleet Smith chased after Cooper Akers still, remember he's now got to pick up all the time and place where he can as Mark Darnell makes his way into the pit line. So he comes in for stop number 2, and as he makes his way down, he will release what will be third hour originally, and well, that is going to be now a change over. But in fact, as he heads on down, I think, understandably, and for the Hyundai Elantra driver here, well, our originally it's going to have a bit of a different strategy to play out after making some progress, but we'll have to wait and see which way the two go a bit later on. Well, as he rolls away onwards, I believe, have we had a move from Fred originally on Mark Darnell and we haven't called out on camera? I think there has been a change of position between the two of them. We'll try to get a replay of that very shortly. Past Darnell right now serving that pit stop. At the front of the field, Michael Polasek and Wojciech Swirydowicz. Gap is coming down a little bit. So Swirydowicz is back into the tow zone. He is 8.5 tenths behind at the moment. That'll keep him a bit closer. Zachary Leopold fighting with Logan McKenzie, or should we say let McKenzie go there. As we are making the way in towards the next quarter, the Pennzoil Super Touring teammates, they swap around for 14th place. So there's going to be a change, but not too grave of one. And two teammates there made sure to optimise their racing strategies. Cooper Akers, he has got Fleet Smith behind. Remember, Smith has completed his stops. Akers has not completed his second stop. And Fleet Smith looking up the inside here. He's going to be decisive, go up the inside for turn 10, but now on the outside of 11, goes very deep into the corner there. He has to survive the corner, and for Fleet Smith, that is how you go round the outside of the hairpin. But understand Cooper Akers right now continue to frustrate him, and for Fleet Smith, this is hurting massively right now. It's not because he's battling with Akers, he is actually battling with John Lauzon, the leader of Gamma right now, who has yet to take his second stop. So he's going to look to the inside, and Akers right now digging in. He doesn't know what Smith's strategy is, or does he? Well, either way, Fleet Smith's going to go up the inside, and as as they make the way too wide through. Well, Smith will get that done, or will he? Battling side by side now in towards the fountain, and Akers on the inside, they touch, and Fleet Smith in the MB just giving a slight biff to the outside of the corner. He's going to try and go around the outside of turn number 4. He's going to goal in here, the B4D's driver, and well, right now he's not giving up whatsoever. He is absolutely obstinate, and in the end, Akers defends the inside. Brilliant racing between the two of them, but this is going to completely annihilate any advantage that Fleet Smith has tried to gain for going for the undercut strategy. And right now, well, John Lauzon may not be aware of it, but if the team can see this is going on, they're going to be telling the Beaver and D's driver, you need to be really prioritising putting those laps together, John, because right now, Fleet Smith is being held up by Cooper Akers, and he is losing a huge amount of time. But it's within the right there for Cooper Akers to go battling, and understandably, Akers may think he's battling for position on track as well as on the strategy. But here they go into the brakes, as Smith looking up the inside, the Pencil Super Touring driver going defensive again, outside of turn 9, inside of turn number 10, but this time Smith's going to go all the way around the outside. Can he get it to the inside of the hairpin? Well, here we go as they make the way down. Get your cameras ready, ladies and gentlemen, as they make the way out. That close-up goes and goes away again. And right now, Fleet Smith can't find a way through. He is struggling to make this move happen. But meanwhile, John Daniels, Logan McKenzie, there they are, fighting for 13th place. Although it's more Logan McKenzie getting ready to come through. Daniels comes on over, and McKenzie here will be made to go the long way round to get this done. But, again, just a reminder, we are expecting McKenzie has completed his second stop, so he's done his strategy. We believe that Daniels is on the one stop here, but Daniels is on a very tight fuel load. So, therefore, he probably won't fight these places. He's just going to have to try and survive, unless it's with another Gamma driver. But Zachary Leopold behind, we believe, still has a pit stop to make, and he'll be making it within the next 5 minutes. Whereas Daniels, if he can do this, Leopold's going to be suddenly realised that T0 racing car is not coming into the pit lane as we understand it, and it will just stay out there and keep cruising along. But Smith versus Akers again, they're back at it as they make the way down towards turn number 8. And this time Smith on the inside. Will he get it done? Will be the third time of trying? The answer is going to be yes. And Fleet Smith finally takes 6th place in the Gamma class and 10th overall. But Cooper Akers kept him there for a very long time. And that lap time he's lost, that last lap compared to John Lauzon, Fleet Smith lost 3 seconds to Lauzon. And Lauzon right now, there he is, your Gamma and 3rd place runner. But the Gamma overall leader for Beaver and D's, he's got a 22-second gap to Major Monsvai, who's yet to take his second stop. Chris McDonald still on the back of the T0 racing driver, but understandably, right now for John Lauzon, this is a Gamma class win. Whether he knows it or not, that is heading his way. And for John Lauzon, well, the last time he took a Gamma class win, to put that in perspective, was, I do believe, last season, unless I'm very much mistaken. And, well, to put you in the frame there, his last win, in fact, no, his last Gamma win, my apologies, was earlier on this season, and it was his 4th Gamma win of his career, and that did come in round number 2 at St. Petersburg. And well, his last overall win was back in season 10, round number 6 at Okayama. So absolutely wonderful then. We do have a wonderful stat bot, which enables us to retrieve all this information, courtesy of the AlphaTauri Change Administration, and we're very grateful for that. But we're also grateful to catch this battle on screen, as that's going to be David Mitchell trying to sneak up the inside of Gareth McAllister. McAllister says, no, you don't, David. And as they come round through the corner right now, we look back for the rear of the UMAT Motorsport number 25, and Gareth McAllister, my goodness, he has been caught up in some of these battles today, no doubt about it. Right now, and doing everything right to hold on, but understand that we build up a bit of a queue behind him. And, well, McAllister has only taken 1 pit stop as we understand it. David Mitchell and Raymond 2 have both taken 2. So, therefore, right now, McAllister really battling against the wave. He's battling it upstream, but he's doing a brilliant job of being a bit of a nuisance here, which he's allowed to do as he comes in towards turn number 8. But as it's going to be David Mitchell getting so close there, almost swiping the camera off the back of the Honda. Well, that's a concertina effect for you, as Ondera into the pit lane as I look up my content booth window. So he's going to serve his final pit stop of the day. And, well, time is running out here. We've still got a few laps to go in this race. We're not said or done. And right now, Damon Mitchell's still going to work incredibly hard to try and make this move happen. But will he be able to do so or not? We will see as Jason Lynn is into the pit lane as well as I look at my content booth window. But will we see McAllister come in anytime soon, as he is building up a line of cars behind? And the answer to that question is going to be yes, he is going to come in. The fuel tank says I'm running dry, and therefore he comes on down pit road, as Jeremy Barber also comes on down. And they're all coming in now. The UMAT Motorsport driver makes his way onwards. Good to see him back on the grid once again, Jeremy Barber. It's been a little time since we've seen him at racing this season. And Major Monsvai still has Chris McDonald for close company in the fight for second in Gamma on the road at least. But where this actually is in relation, we believe this is the fight for 3rd place in Gamma in reality, with Fleet Smith still trying to come through the field and John Lauzon still yet to pit a long way up the road. And both these drivers, of course, still yet to pit as we understand it, unless we are expecting more one-stop strategies. But we think there is only one one-stop out there, and it is John Daniels at the moment, based on the pit stop times and also relative pace of drivers. A lot of drivers still pushing very hard. Now, many of you may remember, of course, the fact that sometimes doing more pit stops isn't always the way to go. Carl Trost, this man, learns it the hard way at Sebring last season, where he was the fastest driver in Delta, but he went for the three-stop strategy, whereas everyone else went for the two-stop, and the three-stop put an extra 25 seconds on his race, which was not ideal, and in the end, what was looking to be an absolute gold opportunity to take his first Delta win, it all in the end just fell out of his hands, and well, definitely a bit of a frustrating day for the man who definitely was a bit of a Sebring superstar. I'd like to see where he can be a superstar this season and bring on home a maiden win in the Delta class or not. Well, we've still got plenty of rounds to find out, but I don't think it's coming today unless luck should go his way. But you never know, to be fair, as meanwhile, back to the front of the field we go with 10 minutes left. We're on to lap 36. We are expecting there to be approximately 41 laps here today as John Lauzon comes into the pits, but on camera, Polosek and Swirydowicz are getting closer together right now. But they are your leaders, and we expect the battle for the overall win is going to be between them. But Lauzon comes on down. We look to the blimp camera as he makes his way to his pit stall. Major Monsvai coming through the hairpin right now with McDonald close behind. And what's going on elsewhere? Well, you do need to look to Fleet Smith. Here he is. He's just making his way out of turn number 8. That is a long way away for Fleet Smith. I think Lauzon has definitely got this done. He's being serviced. He's already spent 10 seconds stationed in the pit lane, and he's served his pit stop already. So as McDonald and Monsvai go on, there's John Lauzon. And right now, that's going to see him drop down the order quite some way. But the man he needs to be safe to is Fleet Smith. And Smith is just making his way to the hairpin right now. So therefore, as he comes through turn 10 in towards 11, John Lauzon's out the pit lane. And there he goes up to speed. And there is the damage done to Fleet Smith's race by being stuck behind Cooper Akers for so long. He has lost an absolutely grotesque amount of time. In fact, that's about, I want to say, 15 seconds he's lost. Oh my goodness, and for Fleet Smith, this has not worked out at all. And in the end, in fact, that's a grand total of 19 seconds behind for Fleet Smith. He has lost out massively, and all because of having to battle hard, where Cooper Akers, and Akers, to be fair, just driving his own race, enjoying an absolutely brilliant battle. But Fleet Smith is going to see the timing chart shortly. The team are going to update him, and he's probably going to say to the team, do not radio me anymore for the rest of this round. Because understandably, that will be enough to take away the emotions of even the coolest of drivers behind the wheel. I can tell you that because Fleet Smith right now, for what was looking to be a battle that was swinging his way for the Gamma win, Sonny has got very far away. But meanwhile, parked up here for the second time today. Swirydowicz ahead of Polosek, at least in the pit lane. But will he be that way as Carl Trost heads on through? Not quite, because Polosek will be the first to leave his stall. Swirydowicz, meanwhile, only a little bit behind. But Polosek having the half a second faster stop, stationary time. And I think Polosek may have backed off towards the end of his stint in order to save the fuel. But now, Chris McDonald comes into the pit lane. So does Mike Almeida. Major Monsvai goes on another lap. There is Monsvai. Is he going to take the lead of the race for a brief moment? Yes, he is. He will lead a lap as he makes his way through turn 1 and down towards turns 2 and 3. And right now, Monsvai absolutely looking in control. But as he makes his way through the corners, well, right now, for Major Monsvai, he will have to come into the pits. He will need to essentially make his way back off the road and let the places go. But Michael Polosek, well, he's there with Wojciech Swirydowicz following at the moment. And a bit further behind, we do see Chris McDonald and Mike Almeida together leaving the pits. It seems like McDonald's going to come back out ahead of the Yellow Flag Motorsport Honda. So that will be still in his favour, at least for now. But where is John Daniels? There's Daniels on the back of Zach Leopold. And Leopold still carried on. And in fact, Daniels, I think he's going to try and make a move here for position. Well, McDonald and Almeida are safe. But Daniels right now, and there's still more places to be gained here. Although I think it's Leopold who's made the move on him quite recently, unless I'm mistaken. In fact, I am mistaken because it is currently what is John Daniels trying to put the pressure on here as they go fight him. And well, as they come on around, it was Zachary Leopold who got the move earlier on, but now it is going to be Daniels trying to come back at him here towards the very end with 6 minutes to go. But as we do see Michael Polosek and Swirydowicz together, 6 of the clock, and on to lap number 38 of what is most likely 41 laps at this point. But goodness me, what a race this is, ladies and gentlemen. And Wojciech Swirydowicz right now staying close, but he needs to find just that little bit more and to be able to try and make a bit of a move here. But we'll see what's to come. John Lauzon, meanwhile, your Gamma leader right now, 3rd overall, and this is very much in his control as Major Monsvai a bit further back. We're currently running second in Gamma at the moment. But where would he come out? As meanwhile, Tyler Long heads his way out. We look to the blimp camera. Where is Fleet Smith? There he is. Will he be ahead of Mod Survivor? I think he will. Yes, he will. So Fleet Smith does return to second in the Gamma class. Head of Mod Survivor. Where's Chris McDonald? There he is. He's behind Logan McKenzie, and Mighty Almeida's close with him. But Major Mod Survivor has returned to third in the Gamma class for all the pit stops. John Daniels, meanwhile, still following Zachary Leopold. And I think now he's feeling a little bit fighty here on the one-stop strategy. And I suspect that is because of the fact and he's been able to save enough fuel to feel confident. He goes up the inside there, and he's going to take that 7th place back in Gamma. So we know where Daniels is now fighting for. It is for 7th place in the Gamma class and length overall. It's not quite put him into the top 5. What it has done is put him well in contention for a very comfortable top 10 finish in the Gamma class. So Daniels has experimented with the one stop. It's perhaps not been the fastest strategy here today in Gamma, but he's definitely made it work, which is great to see. And can he keep Leopold behind him for the rest of the race distance? That we'll have to find out. But meanwhile, Jason Lynn just behind. When it's Mark Darnell, and still these two together, and they do have Ondera behind, but Ondera is a lap down, so he might be trying to unlap himself, but he will not be able to gain any points off them by doing so. So Darnell right now in a bit of a confident place. Well, I suspect the Gator Racing teammates here will just keep in formation at the moment, unless Darnell makes a mistake, or we turn to the team say you can fight each other. But Darnell at least, as he makes his way onwards, looking in control for that podium position, and will be another great result for the Gator Racing driver. I think he's definitely looking upwards for him. But looking at to Damon Mitchell, meanwhile, he's got the company of Ray Tiu behind as he tries to hold on to 13th place, and the Croc Promotion driver right now digging in as that Leopold is into the pit lane. So Leopold could not do the one stop that Daniels has done, and well, suddenly Leopold is going to find out the hard way that Daniels is going the distance here. So that battle for 7th place at the end was all for naught for Leopold. He will drop down, and Damon Mitchell will take the place off of him, and I suspect Cooper Akers will do the same. There is Akers making his way out the final quarter. He will pick up another Gamma position, and Leopold will be demoted to 10th place in Gamma, as Hidako also starts to make his way out of the pit lane. Oh, they're both together here. Well, I can tell you one thing, it's the two Zacks joined at the hip, it would seem, as they leave the pit lane. Well, Hidako tried to unlap himself from Leopold. I don't think this is going to quite work out the way he wants it to, and I suspect those blue flags are going to be waving at him in due course. But as they make the one down there, good to see the two together, albeit not quite on the same lap, and in the end it will be Leopold who comes out ahead there, and understand I think Hidako had to let that one go. But meanwhile, Mark Darnell just comes out ahead of Leopold in 17th place, and in fact he has lost 3rd place there in Delta to Jason Lynn. What's happened? We're going to find out, because we're going to get a quick replay of that, ladies and gentlemen, and here we go for a trip back in time. So this was the run coming out to turn number 8, and it was a brush with the wall there for Darnell. And well, a brush like that, that's immediately going to lose you the pace. And Darnell came across the road there to make sure he did not obscure and frustrate what was Jason Lynn's race. Understandably, in case there's any damage to the car, he does not want to hurt his teammates' performance, and that's why he moved aside immediately. So good awareness from Darnell there, but very unfortunate for him to make that small error, as that's going to cost him a chance to the podium here, unless Jason Lynn has a mistake of his own. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we come back to your live racing. As the racing carries on here, side by side we go, and that's Leopold up the inside there of Darnell for position, so we catch that move for 17th place. But Darnell right now does have a whole queue of cars behind. That's not an easy queue to deal with, as there's going to be contact there with, I believe, that's Michael Polisek, and suddenly, side by side, and Swirydowicz squeeze them through. I don't believe it, with only 2 minutes to go. Well, Polisek, they looked up the inside, thinking that Darnell was going to give it the space with the blue flags waving, and Swirydowicz takes lead of the race. You couldn't make it up. And right now, as they make their way down the start-finish straight, they've got this lap plus 1 more to go. Well, in fact, I think we are onto last lap here, ladies and gentlemen. This race is going to be called at what will be a grand total of 41 laps from what I'm hearing on my ear right now. And as they head on down, well, this could all go the way of one driver. And it will be Swirydowicz if he can hold on. He's just got to survive a few more corners here. And well, for Swirydowicz, this will bring him home. Will be his 54th win of his career, and he would inch himself a little bit closer to Michael Polisek's 57. We'll have to wait and see as the two battle for the record, but battling for the overall honours here today. But right now, this is the closest fight out there. We are going to stay with it just for a little bit longer as they make the way through the corners right now. And Polisek close, looking around the outside. On the brakes they go. He's going to try for it here at turn number 8. Many of them run wide, but Swirydowicz makes a mistake of his own. He's going to go defensive here all the way down towards turn at number 9. Polisek looking around the outside. It's Honda and Honda here. 2 champions doing what they do best, which is fighting for victory. And as they come into the braking zone, Polosek tries to outbrake Swirydowicz. He goes all in on the brakes there and gets to the inside of turn number 10. It's a lovely move from Polosek. Does he get ahead? Not quite yet. Too wide then come through the left hand. Onto the brakes they go. Into the hairpin. It's too wide all the way round. The checker flag awaits them this time. And as they coming out, it's going to be a run to line. Is it going to be Swirydowicz? Is it going to be Polosek? Swirydowicz on the left, Polosek on the right. And as they power their way onwards, the checker flag's there. It's only meters to go. And Swirydowicz takes it literally by what is only 0.05 of a second ahead of Michael Polosek. John Laus on Meilleur's got some time to come through, but there he is to take the Gamma win. Third place overall. Great result from Laus on. Fleet Smith, meanwhile, he'll make his way out the final corners very shortly as Mark Donnell's cross the line, taking fourth in the Delta class off camera. He'll be the first to finish a lap down in 18th place overall. Fleet Smith, meanwhile, on camera, comes home fourth place overall, run up in Gamma. Major Monsfire, what a drive from him. The T0 Racing driver, absolutely ecstatic about that. He takes the final spot inside the overall top 5, third in class. Logan McKinsey's fought his way through to 6th overall. Then it will be Chris McDonald and Tyler Long in 8th place, takes his first Delta win of the season. What a drive from Tyler. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. And then we do see Mike Dalmeida and Zachary Bowman completing your top 10. John Daniels on the one stop comes home for an absolutely strategically masterclass 7th place in Gamma, 11th overall. He shows you the one stops possible. Damon Mitchell just behind there, 12th overall, 8th in Gamma, ahead of Ray Teo. And then Fuero originally will be run up in Delta today in 14th place. A great drive from the S-G driver. And then rounding off, a great start with a great finish. Cooper Akers will then take 15th in a fight-filled race, but not always the fights he wanted. And Jason Lynn will complete your Delta podium with third in the class, 16th overall, ahead of Zach Leopold, who in the end, it didn't matter who he fought today. He would fight everybody, but unfortunately just losing out in terms of those Gamma positions. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. We've also had some other drivers coming through, including that Ondera taking home 23rd, and that was 8th in Delta lap down. Nicholas Shvedska, meanwhile, we had a bit of frustration early stage race, but kept in it to win it. He took 22nd a lap down there and 11th in the Gamma class. But what a race it was, and in the end, all these drivers delivering an absolutely brilliant show and spectacle for us here at Long Beach. I can tell you that, and well, now understandably, as they cool on down, it has been one of those rounds whereby anything could happen, it definitely did. But for Wojciech Swirydowicz, well, today he didn't seem to have an answer to Michael Polosek. Polosek had done everything right, and then Polosek going on to the final lap at the hairpin, just trying to pick his way past drivers. He was putting a lap down. We're getting squeezed the apex there through the hairpin, and Swirydowicz went round the outside, and after as much as Polosek tried to come back, it didn't quite work out, and it was a drag race to the line. And we take a quick look back at that drag race, ladies and gentlemen, before we do bring you those race results, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And here was that incredible last lap encounter as they made the way down. And well, Polosek was on the right here under braking in towards turn number 9. Went all in for it here. He knew he had to, because otherwise if he couldn't get ahead, where would he get ahead? But in the end, Swirydowicz knew as well. All he needed to do was force his way to the inside of the hairpin to try and hold on. And well, both drivers here having so much respect for each other, they went too wide through that final corner. And while Swirydowicz was on the tighter line, he was able to just get that power down. And in that drag race to the finish line here, and this camera shows you how close it was. They reached the finish line, and in the end, Swirydowicz just winning by half a car versus Polosek. Well, the wins keep coming for Swirydowicz, no doubt about it. For Michael Polosek right now, he's got to be sat there thinking today, why am I the one with all the bad luck? But sometimes that's the way it goes. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go take a look at those race results, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. As we do come back to circuit side, well, what a race it has been today, no doubt about it. But here are your results. And as we can see, starting off with what is the results on screen at the very front, as we do have a bit of a glitch there, it would seem. Oh, goodness me, what's happened here? We'll give us a brief moment. It does seem as though our race results do not want to appear, ladies and gents, but give us a brief moment, and we'll definitely get those results up on screen for you. We do apologise for this. And there we go, ladies and gents. Well, our race results finally coming around. They just needed a bit of time to process, but they've made it onto screen. And as we can see, Wojciech Swirydowicz in the end taking victory here today for round number 5 of Season 17, the Alpha Touring Change, brought to you on iRacing and powered by Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. Victory by 400 in the end, as confirmed by the laser timeline for Beaver and D's ahead of Yellow Flag Motorsports' Michael Polisek. Gamma victory went the way of John Lauzon for Beaver and D's. He couldn't quite hold a candle to the top 2, but beat Fleet Smith in the battle of strategy, with Fleet Smith's undercut strategy not working out due to being caught up behind rivals who had to fight his way through, particularly in that final stint. So Lauzon, your Gamma winner there ahead of Fleet Smith, and the B4D's driver decided to go with the unconventional, but still took a second place in Gamma, 4th overall, and then Major Montsvai completed the Gamma podium with 5th place, and the T0 Racing Summit driver in the end, and finding that he wasn't quite on the pace of Lauzon and Smith, but look at how much time Smith was cost as a result of his strategy. A grand total in the end of 18 seconds to Lauzon, and in fact, it almost brought Montsvai in attacking distance 6 seconds behind. A further 2 seconds behind, Logan McKinsey, who charged his way through for 12th place to finish 6th for Pennzoil Super Touring, but got caught up in the scraps along the way, and Chris McDonald, 7th place there for Croc Promotions, missing out on the Gamma podium, but a great result for him in the number 85 Audi. Tyler Long, Delta winner today. He could not be touched after starting length and ran away to an 8th place finish, but the Delta victory, so an extra 8 points come to him as a result of that, and the T0 Racer Central ahead of the Yellow Flag Motorsport pair of Mighty Almeida and Zachary Bowman. In 11th place, it was John Daniels, who was best of the rest for T0 Racing Summit ahead of Damon Mitchell for Croc Promotions, and they enjoyed some battling, but a big shout out to John Daniels in particular for what was the one-stop strategy, the only driver to try it here today, and the only driver to make a success out of it, we do believe. In fact, we are just going to double check our records here, because we do have the question mark of Ray 2, how many pit stops he did. Give us a brief moment, ladies and gents. We are just going to validate. Did Ray 2 go for the 2-stop? Yes, he did. We've had confirmation. So our information that we have tells us he did 1, but we just confirmed with race control that he did 2. So John Daniels, the only driver to do the 1-stop and make it work. And whilst that may not be worth too many points, it definitely will be worth a bit of bragging rights there. He was ahead of Damon Mitchell by almost 4 seconds, with the Croc Promotions driver fighting hard to an 8th place finish in the Gamma class and 12th overall. And it was Ray Tew in 13th there for Beamer and D's, head of Fuad Our Ridgely. Ridgely was run up in the Delta class for S-Yacht G, and here today, of course, finding himself in the thick of the fighting with the Gator Racer machines at Jason Lynn and Mark Donnell, who he got the upper hand on. Cooper Akers ran off the top 15 there for Pennzoil Super Touring, and Jason Lynn was a little bit further behind, 14 seconds adrift, as he did complete the Delta podium there in his Audi for Gator Racing. Zachary Leopold took 17th for Pennzoil Super Touring, the last driver to finish on the lead lap, and Mark Donnell unfortunately missed out on the podium with a big brush with the wall out to turn number 8 towards the very end of the race, but still there, finishing just behind his teammate of Lynn, and most importantly staying ahead of Gareth McAllister, who completed the Delta top 5 in 19th place for Umata Motorsport. And shout out to Gareth McAllister, because he definitely had a bit of a tough race, but in the end he got going with it and enjoyed plenty of fighting action and earned himself some valuable points. Carl Trost, a bit silent on his front, but the T0 Racer Central took 20th place. And then we did see behind him 21st, it was Lewis Gilbert for Gator Racing, head of Nicholas Shvedska for Shvedska Racing, and then Christoph Ondera took 23rd for Junk in the Trunk Electronicas, having a bit of a tough day today, but to be fair, he enjoyed the racing whilst it's going well, and we did see it's at Hodako 2 laps down after something went very wrong at the start of the race for him, and we're not quite sure what happened, but he did come into a bit straight away at the end of lap 1, and it was, as we have now had confirmation, oh, goodness me. Well, it was firstly for a jump start. He came in because of a black flag, so he had a drive-through penalty, and then subsequently he chose to pit the lap after to try and get his strategy out the way, only to then have to go on to a free-stop strategy, I believe. So perhaps there was an issue with the car as well, or perhaps they hadn't put the right fuel in for the T0 Racer Descent driver. But either way, the Delta Championship leader will definitely see his championship advantage now severely slashed. But the good news, of course, he does commit to this as a drop score, and they do get 2 drop scores over the season, so he'll get away with this one, at least for now. Jeremy Barber was the last of your finishers as classified, 4 laps down there for Umata Motorsport. And then we did have the retirements of Corey Lobner, Micah Hendricks, Matthew Mayer, and Francois Schink, with Mayer and Schink having that infamous incident at the hairpin, and definitely that will go down in the history books as one to be added to the Alpha Touring Challenge cheat sheets. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And what a day we've had for round number 5 here in the US state of California. As we look up into the distance there for what is the wonderful Pacific Ocean, well, sadly, we can't look at it for long, because it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge, perhaps you're a massive touring car enthusiast, and you're sat there thinking, I want to be on the grid list, I want to know more about one of the very best touring car racing series that you can take part in on iRacing. Well, the good news is, we've got an absolutely brilliant website to show you, and that's at alphatouringchallenge.com, website on screen, and indeed, if you want to know anything to do with this series, whether it be the full history, all the rules, how to sign up, or the Hall of Famers, the previous champions, you name it, it's all here. And indeed, over 5 years of history, all encapsulated in a single website. I'm going to tell you one thing, as far as websites go for a series, you've got a very tough one to beat when it comes to Alpha Touring Challenge, and that shows you the fun, friendly, but highly professional standard that the ATC conducts itself with. And if the racing today hasn't been something that's invigorated your interest, I don't know what will, ladies and gentlemen, but definitely check out the alphatouringchallenge.com website if you want to know more about the series and get yourself on the grid today. But also, we'd like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our series partners, without whom we could not do this, and that includes, firstly, Syncmesh, who, born out of the pursuit of one-man search for better gear for sim racing. Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to a full line of performance wear. With an obsessive attention to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap on the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your racing experience better. And if you'd like to know more, do head to sync-mesh.com today. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our other series partner, and that is Glass and Steel Photography and Design. The Alpha Touring Challenge's official photographer, Jason, who you've seen today, take a podium in the Delta class, and well done to him once again. He's not just highly talented on the road, at least the virtual road, but he's also a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform as part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. And you've seen many of his photos be used today as part of the broadcast, particularly in the build-up to the broadcast and as part of our Be Right Back screen. But do not just take our word for it, because with 5-star reviews from his clientele citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder, if you're looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassandsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. That was round number 5, and next time out, in round number 6, we make our way to the streets of Chicago for the circuit that was born on iRacing, indeed born in this very simulator as part of a prototype proposal for NASCAR, but it was brought into life in 2023 and has been a staple of the NASCAR road racing aspects since then. And we're going to be taking on the NASCAR Chicago Street Racing Circuit as of Monday, the 25th of May, 2026, for 2 25 sprint races. But meanwhile, we of course invite you to come tune in as if it were live on Tuesday, the 26th of May. And after this round, well, it seems as though the hits keep on coming in terms of victories for Wojciech Swirydowicz, even if today you could say you got a lucky break right at the end versus Michael Polosek, but it went every step of the way. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class, where it's definitely proving to be a class right now full of surprises, with John Lauzon and Fleet Smith having a difference of strategy today, seeing things lean the way of John Lauzon. But in terms of the championship campaign, well, it does seem to be a situation at least where for one man, and that is none other and Chris McDonald, that championship lead is looking a bit more threatened with his 4th place finish and 7th overall. And as for the Delta class, well, Zach Hidalgo has finally hit his speed bump in the road. Tyler Long will definitely gain some ground with an 8th place finish overall. But will we see the ground shift once again, or will this be the year where Long comes into his element? For all that and more, we definitely recommend you tune in a week's time to see how the story continues as we make our way towards the halfway point of the season. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning to Paul's Production, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.